No, we're live.
Yeah, you're good.
Survivor specialist Phil and Alexa are back, and Kellen is making sure Alexa looks all right. She's taking a break from her job as a telemarketer right now. So the technical difficulty. Oh no, I hear the double thing now. Okay, we are back. Bradley's in the live chat saying that it's Grandma Kellen who can't figure it out. It was Alexa. Alexa, Alexa's all good.
1,010% my fault. I am currently in my office, as you can tell by the non-bed that I'm sitting on. And I just stole this really sexy Domino's headset from the guy sitting next to at work. And I'm ready to go. So that was my fault for the past 23 minutes. And I'm glad to be here.
Just want to say this now. Every time you touch that, we get like this loud crackle noise. Just right, so you know. So hands off rest of the night. But most importantly, we're joined by Kellyn Bechtold, who is going to right the ship of what Bradley said to us the other day, right? Like that's what this is about, right?
But we'll see as you ask me questions. Although I do want to say that I was here fully on time. Tech works. I even had time to show them the sunset. I got some wine, so it wasn't my fault, Bradley.
Yeah, Kellen and I were having a great conversation while Alexa had a panic. Had a panic and was like, oh my God, nothing will work. Sound won't work, but that's okay. We're here.
Yeah, we're here. I sprinted 20 blocks in New York City, almost got hit by 7 cars and a couple homeless people. And I'm here now. So we're here to talk to Kellen and not talk about how ridiculous the past 20 minutes have been.
There you go. All right, Kellen. Well, thanks for coming on. We didn't get to give you this little talk beforehand, but everybody wants to hear from you, not us. So you have a story. Don't ever feel like you're talking for too long. Just tell the entire story. I know you listen to Bradley, so you know the deal. He just kept going. You just keep going too. And we can get to the bottom of the edit that was Kellen's on Survivor Ghost Island, whatever it was that we were told. I don't know if this is funny or not, but it felt like for a brief period of time here, it was like a pull string doll where it was Navidi Strong and Trust My Gut were the only two things that you said. And did you have any idea when you're out there on the island, everybody knows that whatever they're saying could get aired. Did you think that something like this would happen where it would just become a catchphrase, or were you just expecting there's a lot of strategy going on here? Why was it this?
So the Trust My Gut thing, I did feel in the moment when Jeff says wow, 36 seasons and I'm still learning how to play Survivor or something. I felt like I had said something that was noticed, but I didn't ever remember talking about my gut any other time. And then I even watched my Jury Speaks video the other night, trying to do homework to get prepped. I take my job very seriously here for the Survivor Specialist. I was like, God damn, I was talking about my gut then too. Oh, it's so annoying. I feel for the fans. I was annoyed by hearing about it over and over again. But so that, I don't know that I expected it to be as big of a deal as it was. Now the Navidi Strong thing, we were fully aware. I think Dom says in our HAP recap, we were fully aware that the Navidi Strong thing was this narrative we were using to all of us in our own way. It was an additional player out there that we had in our alliance. And that was a string to pull of we can get into it later on about why the first half of the game, I was Navidi Strong for one reason. It was working in the numbers. I had someone to shield me from it being my idea. I felt like it was a perfect way where I could just apologize my way through every vote. And I felt like I was building a rapport with the other Malolos, even though it doesn't look like it. And then after the merge, the Navidi Strong thing was just my shield. You guys saw, if Dom and Wendell saw anyone look half intelligent for 10 seconds, then they just slit their throat. And so I was really trying to use that idea of we're a Navidi family. Dom, you're the dad of the family. I'm the mom of the family. And I just felt like it was my safety net, not that it was in any way, especially getting closer 10, 9, 8. I knew there was no way I was going to get to the end that way, but I was trying to use it as a shield.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, early on in the game, like, before you actually started, like, talking to the Malolos and everything like that, like, even before you came out there, was it, like, were you planning on sticking really strong with your original tribal lines? Like, was that a plan you had coming into the game? Like, hey, if I just happen to start on the dominant tribe and I can get in with, like, 1 or 2 people, let's see if I can run that the entire game? Or was it just, like, once the game started, it was like, all right, this is just the easiest, best way for this to work, or not even easiest, but definitely best?
I don't know that I thought of it as a loyalty. I felt like my way of coming across to people as not a threat at all was I was hoping I could come across as like the old loyal lady, especially once I got to Ponderosa and I saw it's like a bunch of like model, beautiful young people. And I was like in the older crowd. I really felt like maybe they're going to think that I'm someone who's like, well, I am emotional, so I don't even have to make that part up. But maybe I'll just come across as like the sweet lady, and loyalty is that game. And I thought I could build really, really strong bonds in the pre-merge and make really strong social relationships and then cash in on that in the post-merge. And I think because of the way the numbers kept falling with the swaps and it just kept being to my advantage, I just kept with that, obviously to my own demise eventually. But so it's not that I like, oh, I didn't want to flip on my original tribe because they're my family and I am loyal and I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. That's what I was trying to play into. And I kind of had that idea going into the game that was going to be one of the ways that I could possibly come across.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
So with Wendell and Dom, like you said, with them just voting out anyone who wasn't going to stick with them, do you think they ever got an inkling that you were thinking of trying to flip on them? Or do you think like you hid that pretty well and they got rid of you for the reason that we saw when you did go home?
I think that they knew that I was strategic. I mean, I don't think I played it off as, at the time I thought I was getting away with it. I really did. Like while I was out there, I felt like I was getting away with it. I didn't feel like I stuck out any more than Chelsea or even Des. Like at the merge, I didn't feel like I stuck out as much as I probably did to them. I didn't realize that Dom had really seen me and Bradley as like a power couple or whatever. I knew that Johnson had figured that out and Brendan had figured that out, but they were gone. I didn't know that Dom had already pegged me as someone who was strategic. I thought I was getting away with it at the beginning of the merge.
Okay. Well, I want to go to like make this like, I guess, chronological as it can be. I mean, we can go, but I want to go back to the beginning because we saw like nothing from the VD in the premiere. We heard from you. We heard from Dom, obviously. I think we heard from Wendell. But, when we talked to Bradley, we didn't hear from him until, the 4th hour of the show. So you and Bradley obviously get close because, it's no secret that now you guys are dating. And it's like on the show, though.
Wait, are we dating? I don't know.
Huge spoiler there. What are you doing on that?
So, but like now in real life, or when I'm watching the show, I'm sitting here and I'm going, okay, I like know this is going to happen. Like I had seen it beforehand or heard it from somebody. I don't even know. But I was like, okay, this is going to happen. And then it was like, here's these 2 strangers who have like nothing to do with each other. And then you guys like end up like running that second tribe together. But like, we never really got to see the relationship that you guys had out there, like at all, like nothing.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I do, like, I haven't, in all of the chats I've done post-game, I really haven't been able to talk that much about what happened those 6 days, and those first 6 days, and why I think it really drove what happened the rest of the season, which is there are some things about Survivor that you don't think about when you're just a fan, which I don't think these are spoilery things, but so when you go to an immunity challenge and your team wins, it is a huge bonding experience. And not only because you're winning together and it feels, I mean, I don't know, I played high school sports and like I've had a few wins there, but it's like that times a bajillion, like the emotional overwhelming feeling to like win an immunity challenge as a group. Like I'm not the only one who sheds tears because of how much it means. And then that night when the other group goes to tribal, it's like the night off. It feels like there are cameras running still. There always are, but everyone just takes the night off of strategy because it's like, oh, thank God. And 3 days from now feels so far away that I would say those afternoons and evenings after a tribe wins immunity is when some of the biggest tribal bonds are made, because for some reason it's just this feeling of like, oh, the game's off until we wake up tomorrow morning. We did it. Our reward is we get to spend time together. And that's when we get really close. And we did that at day 3. We did that at day 6. And if everyone remembers correctly from the first episode, like we lost that first challenge and we didn't get so we were the underdogs because we didn't get the eggs and we didn't get all of the tools and all that stuff. So we really all bonded. We were feeling like, oh, we're coming from behind, and then look at this great arc we got as Navidi, and we have this amazing shelter, and we're all getting along really well. And so it made for a really fun 6 days where we got to bond as a new society. What I love about Survivor and being a fan is really that like societal breakdown and microcosm example. And we didn't have to go through adversity against each other. We got to say like, we're Navidi, they're Malolo, it's us. We're doing everything right. We're winning all this stuff. We're so great. And we're against all those bad guys. And those like that rooted in a way that's what kept the narrative then going. With the swaps, we end up on the right side of the numbers, and it allowed us to just keep playing off of those feelings of those first 6 days where we got to build real relationships. And it's weird. Like, should they change the show dynamics to show more about what happens? Because then it really, if you guys missed that story of our first 6 days about, you asked me about me and Bradley, like really realizing like, oh shit, like that's a smart person and that's someone who understands this game. And we're like both from the Midwest, as much as he's a Cali boy now, you know, like we're both from the Midwest and have a lot in common that way. And talked about past seasons and the idea of Ghost Island and really bonded like that. And we would stay up at night and talk, and it was just to watch all those relationships. Dom and Wendell, they started their relationship then. And you really miss out on those dynamics that feel like strong bonds. Even though at home you think, well, that's all fake. Why does it matter? But it really does matter. So the dynamics were we were building a really strong, cohesive group that first week. And it felt like a huge chunk. A huge chunk of like the beginning experience of Survivor was us being in purple buffs, and it's hard to explain and maybe boring from home. I don't know.
Alexa and I will talk about it all the time. I lost you for a second there. I hope it was my internet. I think my internet just like froze, but we're good. But
no more issues.
Yeah, no more issues. This is what we're known for. But I do think like Alexa and I are huge fans of old school Survivor. We'd rather see like, you know, even though you get all the crap for saying Navidi's strong and trust my gut, Dom was a pull string too. I mean, every single thing he said was this strategy. I have Wendell. Everything Laurel said and everything Wendell, like it got to the point where it was very repetitious. And also I get that it might not create drama, especially around, you know, Brendan and Stephanie, who were fan favorites early on, and then go home. But it would have been nice if we could have seen some of the Navidi relationship, especially when you guys are going to work together for so long. So I don't think it's boring at all. I think it was very integral to the story. And then the other thing they do is once the merge hits, it's like, here's our first confessional. It's going to be from Kellen. It has nothing to do with Bradley going home. And it was like, it could have been such a better story. I feel like if it was like you, Bradley, Chelsea, Dez, all working together so tightly, all of a sudden Bradley goes home and it's like, oh no, are we actually in more trouble? Like, instead, we didn't even get like why that relationship was formed. It seemed like it was literally just Navidi versus Malolo, and you guys couldn't think, not that you guys had bonded.
Yeah, well, and I went back and watched some of the first episodes, and what I think Bradley mentioned it when he talked to you guys a couple of days ago, like the four Malolo, when we have that first swap and it's me, Sebastian, Bradley, Des, Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I always like, you start to go through it and you think, who did I forget? Like I believe that we were all super tight, that we were good friends. Me, Bradley, and Sebastian had started an alliance called the Edge of the Bed. Like,
ooh, I like that.
Yeah, because we slept on the edge of the bed, and I like would sleep in between Bradley and Sebastian. It was like my little spot. I loved it, and I had made like an Endgame alliance with Sebastian on day 2. One of my things going into the game was I want to find like these young, like kind of like a Malcolm, and know that there's all of these young, really pretty girls, that it's going to look like that type of guy would want to work with the young pretty girls, and then me be like the old lady who like has the secret alliance. And so I had Sebastian pegged for that from like moment 1. And I went to him on day 2 and I told him the story, which was true, that my mom is a very religious woman, and she like said, I've been praying every day, there's an Aussie for you who will catch you fish. And so on the second day I take Sebastian like out to the water. Like I waited to like, I didn't talk to him that much in front of everyone, but I went to him and I said, look, my mom prayed for me to have an Aussie out here. Like, I know it's you. I know that you're like this manifestation of my mom's prayers. I will take you to the end of this game and I will lose $1 million to you because I know you are here to take care of me. And
wow, like, that's a good pitch.
Thank you. I thought so. And which you'll have to ask Sebastian someday. Like, he and I had a great relationship. The only words in the edit they ever showed was Sebastian saying, my sandwich was as big as my head, right? I mean, no.
That encapsulates just the relationship.
Yeah. Like, and so Sebastian and I were really close in that way. And Bradley and Sebastian were like, had sort of an in-game thing going. And Sebastian told me that Bradley was his number 1, which was silly because Sebastian should have told me I was his number 1. But I was pretty like tight with Bradley. So I was like, this is perfect. Like Sebastian thinks Bradley is his number 1. Like I have this kid. No one is going to think that Sebastian and I are working together. I think it was until much later in the game people figured it out. But I'm so rambling.
No, it's totally, that's what we said.
Roll me back in.
All I wanted to say was it's funny how like barely cracking 30 and you're like, I'm the old lady over here who's like,
that's what I think is crazy.
It's so fun, but that's your season. I mean, your season got a lot of crap before the season actually started, where it was like, oh, like this is the youngest cast ever. And then like I feel like it was like young people, but like old souls, if that makes sense, where like everybody was like more mature than their years, at least the people that we saw play. For as young as that cast was, I feel like we heard the most from you, Wendell, Stephanie Johnson, Dominic, and it's like, all of you are 30.
Old
you're all over 30, and it's like, hey, what's going on here? But I was going to ask you now, since you're talking so much about Sebastian, you said I would take you to the end and whatever. You were playing the game. He goes out right after you. What was your plan at that point? Would you have gone with him? You would have beaten Sebastian, I assume, right?
Man, I don't know. Sebastian was so loved, is so loved, and it's no secret. I don't know how people would have seen my game versus his. I mean, I think it was pretty clear that he wasn't like super strategic, so I think I could have beat him. I would definitely taken him to the end at that point. I needed him once it's down to the end. And I don't know if you want me to skip ahead to like me and Sebastian's final conversation. Or do you want me to wait?
No, go ahead. Yeah,
this segues well.
So me and Sebastian were always like, I never lied to him. He didn't lie to me. Like we were up until the Chelsea vote, we had 100% worked together. And even in the Chelsea vote, like after we get back, I guess they did show him like drag me down the path. And we got back to camp after Chelsea went home, and he like pulls me aside and he's like, I'm so sorry. Like, I really wanted to tell you, like I tried to get your attention at Tribal, and I was in the middle of it, and I was like really anxious, and I'm really sorry I didn't tell you. And I was like, it's fine, Sebastian, but it just means I'm next, and there's nothing we can do. You know, he believed them that I wasn't. They were telling him they weren't going to come after me because they had figured out we were close.
Mhm.
But then Chelsea goes home on my last afternoon when Sebastian has said like they want it to be you. I mean, even Wendell has come to me and told me like it's gonna be you. Sebastian is sitting, we're out on this beach mat, and I was like, Sebastian, you have to come with me. You will be sitting next to me on the jury. My goal, which they showed none of on my last 3 days, was to get Wendell and Dom to flip on each other. So I went through every single jury vote with Dom being like, this is how Wendell's going to beat you. I went through every single jury vote with Wendell and be like, this is how Dom is going to beat you. You cannot take each other. And as I was having that conversation with Wendell, he says, well, and Sebastian will vote for blah, blah, blah. I think I can get Sebastian's vote. And I was like, wait, what did you just say? And he was like, and I was like, you just said you're going to get Sebastian's vote. Like, you aren't taking him. And he was like, no, I didn't mean it. So I go get Sebastian. It's on my last afternoon. And I'm like, Wendell told me he's getting your vote at the jury. They are not taking you. And so he takes me over to Dom and Wendell and says, I quote, I'm just asking you guys if it would be okay if we leave Kellen here for 3 more days. I've done everything. I've done everything you've asked of me so far in this game. I'm asking you, I will vote for her 3 days from now, but can we take Donathan out and just like let her stay here with us for 3 more days? And so,
you're there for this conversation.
I am sitting there on the beach.
Oh my God.
Like Sebastian like takes me over, to like go to the lords of Survivor 36 and bow down and ask them permission to keep me. And I don't think it was strategic at all. Like I think Sebastian and I just loved and cared about each other as friends. And he was like, I would rather have you be here longer. And I've done everything they've said. And but at that point, Dom and Wendell sort of like start unleashing on me about like, you lied to us at the Chelsea vote, and why would we take you? And you say you're with us, but you haven't been, like just being so hardcore on me. And I was like, they don't show that. That's also a little bit that situation of like why I end up voting the way I do at the end. But yeah, it was me and Sebastian's relationship is, thank you for letting me tell it here. Like it's one that was really important to my game in the beginning of the pre-merge of me and Bradley and Sebastian. I felt like I had a really good dynamic of like a really strange threesome. And I liked that. It just didn't make sense that Sebastian would want to work with Bradley and Bradley would want to work with Sebastian as far as character. Like even when you're out there, I thought the 3 of us could really like roll under the radar as like just a weirdo group that people wouldn't suspect we were working together. And so that then like kind of carried through me and Sebastian a little bit. That may have actually hindered my chances to make a move some of the time later on, because maybe Donathan and Laurel would have been willing to flip if I had tried to like go against Sebastian instead of Dom and Wendell, and I wasn't willing to do it. So it's just a really big part of my emotional game and why I did what I did. And it's nowhere to be found until right here tonight.
There you go.
We're happy to be a platform from that. But you two would be a really cool, it would have been really cool to watch you guys interact, because like you said, the only time I ever saw Sebastian reference you was also in the same sentence as a sandwich. So it would have been really cool to see that, because it sounds like it was a really integral part of your game, and it sounds like a bit of his too.
Yeah. And I mean, like, as I'm sitting here and I'm watching this and like Bradley going home, do you think had Bradley stayed, made it past that vote? Like, we've heard from Dom, we've heard from Chelsea. They say they threw that challenge so that Bradley would go home. Do you think if Bradley makes it past that vote, you, Sebastian, and him do try to rally the troops sooner to actually get rid of a Dom and Wendell, and it isn't the Dom and Wendell show like we saw? Like, do you think you just didn't have any ammunition?
Yes. I mean, I think 2 things. Of course, an important thing is I didn't really have the numbers then after Bradley was gone, but I didn't really know that at the time. I thought I had the numbers and I thought I had time. What really screwed up myself and held myself back was I felt so exposed at the coming into the merge feast and Bradley being gone. I felt so safe sitting behind that narrative of like, they were calling him Hitler and like all this stuff. And like, it was awful. Yeah, Michael, you know, sometimes he is 18 and makes inappropriate comments.
Sometimes he's an 18-year-old.
Yeah, sometimes he's allowed to be 18, you know, 19 now. But like, I had felt so much like I hadn't hurt my relationship with Jenna. Like I hadn't hurt my relationship with Michael. I felt like I had been still building these relationships enough that getting to the merge, people were going to original Navidi were going to be like, oh, Bradley's in charge. And also the Malolos, that I had built enough of a relationship with them that I could work it. But I felt so exposed that since my other strategy partner was gone, that people were looking at me and maybe they weren't. I felt I was like a neon light of like, you just ran the pre-merge. Everyone knows it, which is maybe not at all what was perceived, but that's what I felt like. And so coming at the merge feast, I'm like, I have got to take like 500 steps back, get back under the radar. Then I win the freaking individual immunity challenge, which was so dumb. Like, what was I thinking? So then after I do that, then it's like, oh my gosh, I am like a neon. I'm now, how am I like the nerdy girl who's like so nervous? I hope people like me and I'm not going to survive one challenge. Like, motherfucker, like now I just have the immunity necklace. Like people think I just voted all these people out. Like now I'm like a social threat. Like people are saying how much they like me. And like, so it was so weird that after Bradley was gone, I felt like I was accelerated into this super visible space. And I think that also interrupted my ability to like actually take charge when I needed to take charge. And I did have the numbers. So the whole Bradley thing leaving, it really does, it's so interesting because Dom did it. And it's kind of what, in some ways, what screwed Dom's game. Like if Dom hadn't done that, he may have gotten Bradley's vote at the end, right? Because Bradley's like a big strategy guy. And he wouldn't have set me off in the way that he did. And so even though in some ways it's his biggest game move, what if it's also the reason why he didn't win in the end, which is very egocentric of me and Bradley to sit around and think about.
Is that all you guys talk about when you guys like are together? Is that it's like, damn, Dom, it is his, that's why he lost. It's us.
No, we sit around and talk about how Dom lost because it's my fault, not because it's Bradley's fault. But no, believe it or not, Bradley and I talk about things other than Survivor on occasion.
That can't be possible.
It's shocking because when I talk to Bradley, it's always Survivor based. I don't know anything else about the man except for Survivor stuff. So I don't believe it.
So Kellen, when you're at the merge feast or when you're back at camp for the first time, other than all of these like qualities that you have that in any normal world would be a good thing, but in Survivor, like being a good person isn't good because then everyone wants to get rid of you. What were Dom and Chelsea's explanations for the vote? Because again, like Phil said, we didn't see it. How did they sell that to you?
Well, they didn't really have to. They lucked out because Donathan came to me first. And Donathan was like, he was not nice, like said some not nice things about Bradley and said that Bradley had called him names and all of this stuff, which may or may not have been true. We don't know. And so Donathan said, we got rid of him because he was being really mean. And when he came to tell me that, I was just like, okay, that's fine. And I was also trying to play it off like, I didn't want to be seen as in a showmance. That was like a fear of mine. So like when the people would come to me like, oh, we know you were close to Bradley, like we feel bad. I was like, I don't care. Like it's fine. Like, yeah, whatever. Like, I don't care. But so then when Chelsea and Dom come to talk to me about it, I am kind of wanting to let them off the hook because I don't want them to think I'm upset. Like I don't want, for many reasons, for my own personal self, I didn't want to be upset that he was gone. I didn't want to disrupt these people who I thought were going to be voting with me. I didn't want them to think that I resented anything. I didn't want them to think that I was going to be angry. So therefore, I didn't want Dom to think, oh, you voted out Bradley, so now I'm coming after your ass. Like, I didn't want that to come across in any way. So I almost was forward in letting them off the hook more than them trying to come convince me of anything. Does that make sense?
No, that's actually a great idea, I think.
Yeah, but my question is, why did you not go after Dom at this moment? Because, like, I'm looking at it, you had Michael, Jenna, who you had, played with, and maybe you didn't make the best relationship with Jenna, but you had Michael and Jenna. You had Donathan, who comes to you and tells you that. So that means you probably are thinking you at least have, like, Laurel a little bit. And then you had Sebastian, who you're saying you're very tight with. Does Libby go along the Malolo lines? Like, why was this not the time when you tried to go after Dominic? Was it because of the idol? Was everybody just scared of that, or was there more to it?
Well, at that point, I feel like I'm in a group of 4, which was me, Chelsea, Angela, and Des. And I felt like the 4 Navidi girls, my whole thing with at this point is like, let's stay Navidi, was because I had those 4 girls and I thought Sebastian, which gave me 5. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that's the majority of the larger alliance, and I'm at the top of it. Mm-hmm. Like, mm-hmm. I can beat any of these 5 people. And so how the rest of this filters out is my best bet is to keep with Chris, Dom, and Wendell. That's the 8 of us. Is that the right math?
Yeah.
So there's
5 of the
8 of us, right? In my mind, and I'm doing math Survivor, be on the right side of the numbers, just know the numbers, know your math. In my mind, there are 8 of us, mm-hmm. and I'm in the 5, and I mm-hmm. am the strongest one in this 5. So these 5 can vote out these 3 when we need to. But right now, if I'm the mother of this purple family, we can knock these people out. And all these people, whatever mix of it is, they're going to want to move against these boys. Because mm-hmm. first merge boot is often, or used to be, kind of old school. It was like strong men, right? Mm-hmm. And so I totally misunderestimated the fact that people would not want to move against the largest threats. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it also, in that moment, there's this other dynamic, which is a personal flaw of mine, is I really did not get along well with Chris Noble. And so I think because I was trying to slide under the radar a little bit, I felt like I had neon lights flashing on me. So I'm going to take a step back. I also don't really love like Chris Noble. And I don't think he and I will ever work together at all. And I was like tired of hearing raps, and I mean, there were just, he's a great person in real life, but he says a lot of things that I think are offensive, like to women or whatever. So I, especially out there when I hadn't eaten food for weeks, like, no, like, don't talk to me about like how you like to go to Hooters on like day 20 of Survivor. Like,
alliance building number 1.
Yeah. So I think those are all the combinations of why I was kind of, even though us Navidi girls really wanted to keep Chris there, because that's what worked best for our numbers. We were willing to make the switch because it was just socially hard for me. And I was also trying to stay under the radar. So those are all of my excuses for why I didn't go after Dom then.
I have so many.
That makes sense.
I have so many things to say off of this now. I'm so like ready. I have like
let me get some more wine and you just go ahead.
Yeah. Here we go. Wow, she's got the.
Oh, I like the carafe.
Yeah, it's just right there, ready to go.
I think I'm gonna use a bottle of wine and without them sponsoring me on this podcast. No. All the brands have been removed.
We're gonna have to call whatever wine bottle you got and see if we can get some sponsorship.
Well, here we go with the beginning of this, I guess. So you're the top of the 5 as you're seeing it. But did you ever fear that with all the idols that everybody assumed Dominic had an idol and people thought, I don't know if at this point Wendell had an idol, but I'm sure that, he's probably playing a pretty, gung-ho game. Were you scared that they were going to also target you first then? Like, yeah, you're the leader of the 5, but will the others try to idol you out?
Did I think the people in the 5 were going to come after me?
No,
Or did
not
I think
them, but
Dom
like
and Wendell were
Dom
going
and
to?
like when you finally go after the 3, as you were putting it, when you were finally going to go after Dom and Wendell, were you scared that they would just come after you because of who you were aligned with?
I mean, yes. Which is why I was so proudly like Navidi strong. I didn't want Dom and Wendell to think that I was doing anything other than we are purple. We played this first week together. We are just lucky. We got on the right side of the numbers. All of us, like Wendell Senior is going to get out here. Kristen Abate is going to get out here. Like we are going to do all of this, and then we can go to work. Like we just bought ourselves, like the way the swaps worked out. We all just got a free ticket to the loved ones visit, and then let's go to work. And like that's what I was trying to. I think because I was pushing that so hard, I didn't think they were going to come after me right there. I didn't feel uncomfortable. But I also am, it's like total mistake. Like it's so hard to hear myself like talk through why I did what I did when I know it's so wrong. But at the time it felt
only
like the
one
best I
person
could
did it
do.
right the whole game. You know, there's only one person, and that's Wendell. So it's like everybody did something. But it's funny when you say this, oh, we're going to get everybody now to this loved one visit. Bradley, when we had him on, said he thinks they should just get rid of this loved one visit because that's how people play. People just play like, okay, great, I played a great game because I made it to loved one visit. And like at that point, it's like if you haven't been playing to win, it's just kind of like, all right, now it's like it doesn't matter. Hopefully I can sit at the final 3, but I don't really care. And I'm not saying that's what you were like at all. I'm just saying it seems like a lot of people are saying, let's hit this loved one visit and be done. Like,
yeah, it's been treated like a milestone almost. I mean, I don't know how true this is, but almost as much as like going to final tribal council.
It's because it's the most powerful, amazing experience to have to make it that far. And you get weirdly attached to it. I mean, it may just be me, so it might be my experience, but I think all of those years of watching Survivor and watching people when they just melt in that moment when Jeff says, like, bring this out here, like somehow once you've been out there for about 3 weeks, you start to feel the power of what that will be like. And it's not even so much, oh, I need to see my loved one. Like sometimes it is like that. But I think you're having the most amazing experience of your life, something that you feel will never be recreated. It's this high that you can't even explain. And when you can taste that you can get your loved one out there to be in this new universe that's better than anything you've experienced before, it is a very strong pull that, I mean, not everyone, but it can get people really off kilter because it's a very, very strong emotional experience. And so, yes, it becomes a tool of like how Navidi Strong was like an alliance member. Loved Ones Visit is an alliance member. Like these narratives that you can use, these points, signposts that you can get to that people are playing towards. And sometimes it blinds people like it did me maybe. And other times maybe it makes people not think Endgame all the time because they just want to get to the next step. And there is only one winner, but there are other things that you want to accomplish and get through while you're there.
And I'm sure, and maybe I'm wrong, but I know Bradley said like he knew at a certain point there was no way he was winning the game. Like it hit him like not too far in, but it was like, oh my God, like I'm not gonna be able to pull this off. Were there other people who was like, I'm not gonna win, so as long as I hit the loved one visit, that's like my victory? Because at that point, like somebody like even Jenna, who went home right before the loved one visit, she had to know at that point, like Jenna's not pulling out this game.
I don't know. It's really hard, and I don't want to use there was a moment where I knew I wasn't gonna win.
When was that?
Well, it wasn't that I never thought I'll never win. First of all, so I should clarify that. I always thought if I make it to the end, I can win. I never thought, and still to this day, I can be Delusion Lady of the Century, but still to this day, unless I was with Dom or Wendell, and I may have been able to beat them. Like those two, I'm not sure, but I still to this day believe I would have beaten anyone else. Maybe that's delusional. But there was a moment where I realized, oh shit, my game's over.
Yeah.
Which was after Michael went home. It's in the middle of that the split tribal. Michael goes home. I totally fucked all that up like royally. Yeah. I knew in that moment I was done. But as far as like how people who don't know the game that well and who weren't super strategic out there, like, did Jenna ever say to herself, and like, not that Jenna was great. She did a lot of things. She's so fun. I love hanging out with her, but like, did she have a pulse on whether or not she could win the $1 million?
Yeah.
I don't know, you know? I mean, what do you guys think? Like,
we just heard so little
other seasons or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, we can talk. I like, if this was Bradley, he'd be like, oh, he told everybody that went pre-merge that they were terrible at Survivor. So, but I do think that I feel like we didn't see enough from Jenna, but I feel like it hits everybody at some point. Like, oh my God, there's no way I'm pulling this off. Like, unless I do something insane. Like, we had Will Wall on here from Millennials vs. Gen X, and he said, like, once he hit the loved one visit, he said to himself, I'm not going to win this game. Like, there's no way I can do it. And that's when he like figured I have to turn it up a notch. So like, it's just interesting to like see like what everybody's thinking, because you have to know which person you're talking to that you can really use the loved one visit as a tool to. Like, as like, if I can get you there, they're also not going to be mad when I vote them out. Like, as like, otherwise, like Dom, you get him the loved one visit, he still wants to win the game. Like, you know, he's still going to be pissed off if you vote out Dom. But I feel like there's probably some players, and I don't know if it's necessarily your season, but you can say to them, hey, I'll get you the loved one visit, and that's all they're asking for. It's like, that's the greatest thing you could ever give me.
I don't know. I feel like it's the same people. The people who value Survivor and being the sole survivor are the people who understand the power of the loved ones visit.
Really? Okay.
I agree with Kellen on that, because I think you make a good point. Like, it takes a really strong level of like self-awareness to know that you can or can't win the game. And so, I mean, I guess I can't speak for anyone on the season. I guess only each player could. But when it comes to the loved ones visit, I think you are right. Like, it just has a completely different, it's just such a different factor from any other part of the game. Even, like I just said, the final tribal council, because that's still a game thing. That loved ones visit is just so personal. And I don't know. I have never like not eaten for 25 days and had all my friends try to kill me. But I know if someone promised me the loved ones visit and then turned around on that, I think I'd have a huge issue with that. More of an issue than if someone said, I'll take you to the merge. I think the loved ones visit just is held to such a completely different standard, understandably.
And actually, I think Jenna did say at some point, like, Sebastian promised me loved ones. Like, maybe I'm making this up. So I don't know. We'll have to check with them. But I do think they did have that conversation about Sebastian saying, like, to get her dad out there. So maybe that goes against my argument of like, if they're not super, it didn't mean as much. But there's no doubt about it that that's a huge factor in the game. And it's a huge strategic thing that people talk around all the time. Like Sebastian, when he picked Wendell, he says, I promised my boy Wendell. Oh, Dom, he's the family man. Donathan, his story with Aunt Patty is so great. Like, Sebastian made all of those decisions on things he knew about outside of strategy in that game. And they had talked about it endlessly. It was like, I always say, it's like watching when you've read a book and then you go see the movie and everything you've seen comes to life exactly like you've pictured it. That's what seeing loved ones come out on when they run out is what it is, because I knew about Kristen's hair and that she was probably going to have like, she was like this gorgeous woman. And I knew that Grace, that she was going to be tall and look like Sebastian, but her hair was more blonde. Like, I knew that Sydney was going to be like less emotional than Chelsea, but normally it's the other way. I mean, like, you just watch it all come to life. And so I don't know, Survivor specialist people, I'm sorry, I'm not talking strategy. I'm talking about like,
no, this is good. Give us this.
And love and family and like all of
I'm over here throwing up, but it's great.
yeah, Phil, whatever.
I wanted to say to you, Clay was in our live chat here for a moment. I'm not sure if he's still in there, but he was in the live chat before.
Did
So
he say something?
he did. I don't know. I think he was talking crap to Bradley. So he's doing what he was supposed to, right? But I got to meet Clay at the thing, and he was so excited to be out there. That's the other thing too, and I think people forget this. And now, like, we're talking about the loved one visit more than we talked about anything else here. That's fine. It's funny because most people just gloss over the loved one visit at this point. But when I talked to Clay at that finale event, and he was pretty much saying like it was such a moment for him too. And I think people forget that, like. Kristen didn't seem like she was a big Survivor fan, but she knew how much it meant to Dom. So when she comes running out, it's super emotional for her too, because that's like I know, like, if I were to go and my mom were to be like, I'm your loved one, if she came running out there and saw that I had made it that far, that would mean so much to her too. And I think it's like this colliding of worlds where it's like, oh my God, you did it, and oh my God, I made it. And I think that's why it becomes so much more powerful. And so many people have such a hard time understanding that. But it's like, you might not see your parents every day. You might not see your loved one every day, but you talk to them pretty much every day or text them and say, hey. So I think that's where it comes in that a lot of people just don't understand.
Yeah, and I didn't understand until I experienced it either. So yes, it's a powerful tool. Yes, if they took it out, it would change the game of Survivor. And the only other thing that I think would change it as maybe or more drastically than that is how how you're incentivized to stay in the game. And if they could even that out, like whatever it is, if there is a $1 million prize for one person, I think everyone plays the game really differently. Which I don't think we can really go into like the details of that. But if truly one person got rewarded, like what if even second and third place, like that's like public knowledge, right? That there's second and third.
Yeah, that they get like 100,000 or something like that. Like that's, at least that's what it used to be.
I think that's fairly common knowledge.
Yeah.
What if there is no second place? What if there is no third place money?
Yeah.
What does that do for people who are thinking, well, at least I'll get third?
Yeah. That's a good point.
If it's 0 or $1 million, like
you're going to play
that game differently. And so that's the only other way I can think, like if they want everyone to drive balls to the wall, all out, do everything you can, there has to be 1 and 0.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, because that's the, what is it? That's that theory. The economics theory. I can't remember his name, but it's that one economics theory where they like will say like, if you put somebody in a position where like, if you both do something and if you both do it, you win. Or if one person does it, they get everything and the other person gets nothing. Like the one person will probably do it and one person probably won't. But it's like an interesting thing because you're either getting all or nothing. Like there is no, you both win. So it's like people have like a different mindset on how they want to do it. I forget what it's called, but that's what Miami did for me. They gave me a theory that I can't remember the name of and remember like a half-ass version of.
I was about to say you lost me when you said economics theory, but then that actually was pretty sound. So good job.
Thanks. I hope that worked. But if we can jump away from the loved one visit for a second, Kellen, when you were talking earlier, it brought me back to something, and I want to go all the way back to day one. And I want to go to Chris Noble. Like, I want to talk about Chris Noble, at least briefly, because you went to the jury with him. You ended up voting him out. He was in a VD. You did vote for Chris, right? Or did you vote for Libby?
I think.
No, we all voted for Chris except for Des and Angela.
That's right. So that happened. And we can also talk about why Des and Angela were left out of that. But so Chris pulls that thing on day one when Des is doing the puzzle. Mm-hmm. Does that instantly just be like, my God, this guy, or was it just like a constant like event that led you to being like, I can't be on an island with this man?
No, we all were glad he pulled the thing. Like we didn't think there was like, from our perspective, Laurel was like very far ahead of Des in the puzzle.
Really?
So like no one would, I don't even think when Dom says like, should we have done something differently? He was talking about how you should have picked someone else to do the puzzle, but he wasn't talking about like, I don't know if we were yelling or what, but I think we were all saying like, pull it, like give up.
Really?
Wow.
So I don't think anyone was upset with Chris for doing that.
That's interesting. Huh. Okay. Cause I would have thought that
they kind of framed it to seem like it was his big blunder, which makes sense.
I mean, maybe I'm off.
I don't know. There's no revisionist history. This is fact, right? For these 2 hours, this is fact.
Also, I'm gonna hijack real quick. James just texted me. Phil, the theory is called the prisoner's dilemma.
Prisoner's dilemma. There you go. Thank you. Tell James I said thank you. See, that's why James went to Harvard and I went to Miami, though. That's the difference. But yeah, so James just hijacked your podcast, Kellen. And also was part of the reason it was delayed.
Yes, well, that was his fault, but
Yeah.
that was completely his fault.
But I just wanted to ask that because I know you were saying like you and Chris didn't get along and all of that, but it seemed like everybody was always against Chris. And then Chris gets to the merge and you all convinced him not to play an idol. How does this happen? Is it just because he never went to tribal?
I still can't believe he had an idol. I still cannot believe he had an idol. That was the only time I felt like a fan again since I've played, was watching that episode. And I had no idea, none of us did, that Chris had gone to Ghost Island, that he left with an idol in his pocket. I mean, he sat on that information like it's a gift he's given me that I can never return. It was so amazing. Oh my gosh, to watch that. How he believed, like, they show the well scene of us all like tromping down there, right? Mm-hmm. And like literally, I think all of our faces are like, like no one even looks like they're buying it at the time, and he just misses the entire read. I mean, the entire room is obviously not with him, you know. So I think he just has misreads on people. But the crazy thing is that we all have to sleep with ourselves at night, is if you go back and watch that episode and listen to everything that Chris Noble has to say, he predicts the rest of the season.
He really does.
I really should question myself when I try to get all high and mighty that I know Survivor and Chris Noble didn't, because, you know, he was like the savant of it all.
Yeah.
Can you go through the whole well situation? Did he actually just kind of like snap his fingers and everyone walked down there? I cannot imagine that's actually what happened. I really like a play-by-play would be fantastic.
I mean, I think it is often when you get back from challenges, you've all like your canteens are empty. So it's often, it is often that you get back to camp and then you go fill up your water, or a few people go and they volunteer to take everyone's or whatever. I don't remember him being like, round it up, guys. Like, I don't remember him being like that, but I don't know. I think we just all moved down and we started to go. And then, hey, look, in Survivor, that's also something you don't get a sense of as a fan. I had no idea of how little time you spend by yourself in, for me, 35 days. Like, you don't go to the well by yourself. If you see 3 people go to the well, you're like, oh, I'm all of a sudden super thirsty. Like, you don't let people go off as much as possible. And so I think it was probably just this group effect. He may have asked a fairly group of people to like go talk. And then if you see 6 people go, you're like, well, hell no, I'm not going to stay here and miss out on this. So it's not so much that he like rounded us up, but he did, I guess, take advantage of the water well forum.
Yeah, I was watching that and I was like, this is bonkers. There's 11 people at this well.
And it's the only time that everyone went to the well except 2 people. In my, like, I don't think the rest of the time I was out there that many people went. But it was that first vote after the merge, the first time, you know, we were all still learning what to do and how to do it.
Well, and I was going to say too, does it not help that it's Chris telling you all of this, who is so against Dominic? And like, you already all have like your opinion of where it's like, this guy doesn't know the game. Was it because it was him telling you, like, had this been somebody else, like maybe even Laurel, I don't know, because we still only got like Laurel kind of following in this game. But if Laurel had said to you, like, guys, this is what's going to happen, we need to make this happen now. Is that a different perspective everybody has?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he had lost like credibility because he and Dom were at each other. He hadn't been to tribal, and you do start to get a little bit like, you don't even know what's going on here, bro. Like, it's a little bit of that, and just his rapport with the group out there, it was just really hard to feel like connected to him as a human being. And I don't think that was just me. I mean, my reasons were maybe different than other people's reasons, but like we saw Laurel and Jenna just be like, oh, you just have to like swallow your pride and smile. Like he had just rubbed people the wrong way. And I know that's not his intent in real life. And it wasn't even his intent out there. But, you know, one of the things he said to me was like, he like patted me on the head one day, which is like advice for future people in my life. Like, don't pat me on the head. He's like, you know, Kellen, I just really hope, I look forward to after this game to finding out, I bet you'll find success sometime in your life.
Oh my God.
And like his perspective, and like now that I know him, like he genuinely was saying like, I can't wait to like be friends and like hear about things that go well for you. But what I said to him was like, I'm pretty freaking sure I've been successful in my life. Like I have 2 master's degrees and I've made pretty decent money and like, I'm good, bro.
No,
like,
Kellen, you will later.
Yeah. So like, I don't, the whole, like, how did the Chris Noble fall happen? It was a lot of nuance around like social awareness and not in a way that he's not kind. I don't know. I don't want to, I feel like I'm trashing him and I don't mean it that way.
You're following up Bradley. You're not trashing anybody.
Yeah, this is fine.
You haven't insulted anybody personally yet. But really what I want to know is, and everybody loves to play What If Survivor. What if at the first tribal council, which is at this merge, the first tribal council Chris Noble goes to, he plays an idol that offsets 10 votes for himself. What is the perspective of Chris Noble after that? Like, would you guys have all just like lost your minds had that happened?
Yeah.
Who would have gone home then? That would have been Libby?
Libby.
Oh my God.
I mean, because I think we would have thought that he had figured it out and like played the whole thing just so he could, I don't know. We would have lost our minds. I don't even know what we would have thought.
Because nobody was even thinking like Chris has an idol, we should be worried about that. It was just like, let's just get rid of him now.
Oh my gosh. Amazing.
No, nobody thought he had a thing.
Oh my God. That's fantastic. Wow. I love it.
What was it like to watch? Because did Chris not tell anyone about his overnight Ghost Island escapade until it aired? Like, what was it like to watch that and just know that all went down and you're only finding out about that a year later?
It's humbling because all you do is complain like, I didn't sleep for 34 nights in a row. Like I was up all night. I always watch the moon go past and then and you can hear when boats like pull up and stuff. You're out in the middle of the ocean. Like we're just all just like passed out. No, even Dom would be up in the middle of the night all the time. Like I think in that scene, Dom's even passed out. We thought Dom slept 45 minutes a night. Oh no, there even Dom was passed out while Chris goes off. So that was so fun. That whole episode was my favorite episode to watch of the season, and a lot of people. And Chris like saved that for us. So we all got to experience that as fans. And it was a really cool thing that he didn't tell anybody.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Because I know like if that were to happen, like it almost seems like everybody wants to tell somebody like what they had, like what their hidden thing was. Like, this is what I had. Or I know when you all get to Ponderosa, all you guys talk about is, you know, what would have happened if we would have done this? What would have happened if this person didn't go home? So it's crazy that for so long he kept that a secret, and good for him, because that was the only time I really believe that Ghost Island worked on the entire season. I felt like that was really the only time where I was like, wow, this is awesome. Why didn't they do this more?
Yeah. It was super fun. It was super fun.
Well, and now though, so speaking of Ghost Island, you don't do it the first time, and this is where the gut really started coming in.
Let's hear the gut.
I thought it was a good move sitting over here, but since then, a lot of survivors have said they probably would always try to take any advantage they can. What do you think?
That's what they all say.
What do you think? Let's hear what you think.
Let's hear it, Kellen.
I'm getting more wine for this.
Yeah, I see that. She's ready now.
Pour the whole thing in.
Start questioning my Ghost Island play. Let's drink up.
Which worked, by the way.
Yeah, no fucking shit. Why does everyone like hello, like literally in so many ways that would have blown up my game at that moment. I was in, everyone can get on, chat away about how delusional I am.
Sweet
Fine,
people.
bring it. But I was in the perfect spot in that tribe. Like, I had Bradley and Sebastian. You guys have heard earlier tonight about how closely I was working with the two of them. I could have gotten them to do whatever the hell I wanted them to do.
Oh, this is fun.
Bradley, are you there?
Oh, he's
Yeah,
here.
keep running with this. Own this.
Yeah, no, Bradley and Sebastian would have done whatever I wanted. And I had Chelsea and Des as well. It was perfect. I was in the middle swing boat of a majority alliance who like, and the Malolos were not budging. They were staying four tight. If you go back and watch on the Jenna, Michael, Johnson vote, when it's only three of them, Michael says, well, I guess we're going to have to break up now, even though we don't want to, which means as a group of 4 against 5, they were sticking together. So pagong away, Kellen, you're so boring, you're so dumb, blah, 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 blah. Those 4 Malolos wouldn't split up to work with us. So because they were a strong 4, and I didn't have to worry about my 4 people breaking off with anyone because those 4 were not open and not allowed. Like they will say now they were, but they were not. And you can go back and there's evidence of Michael saying like, now we have to break up. Well, you dingbats, when it was 5 versus 4, that's when you needed to split up if you wanted to split the game and make things work. So I had gone to Brendan on the night that he goes home. He and I are out hunting for snails. And I say like, Brendan, are you willing to work with me? And he says, Kellen, you remind me of my wife, Margie. And I said, does that mean you're willing to work with me? And he said, nothing. He says that he didn't hear me now.
You?
He didn't say a word. He said he didn't hear me.
Oh my God.
He didn't hear you?
He says he didn't hear me. Yeah, I told him that we were all out in New York one night and he was like, what? I didn't hear you say that. And it was like this moment on his face. So I don't know. Where was I? Oh, so why I did not play on Ghost Island is because I was in the perfect middle seat of a majority alliance of 5 who were against a group of 4 who were not going to split up anyway. They were sleeping by themselves. They were going down to the beach by themselves. They weren't letting us in. So at that point, my only thing is to like be social with them, which I think I was. If Michael's exit press, Brendan's exit press, Johnson exit press, James's exit press, who do they say they liked being around?
This girl.
I was going to say Bradley as like a troll, but I didn't do that.
Yeah, Bradley. Yeah. They love Bradley.
Yeah.
So it's like I was in the perfect spot and having to come back, like what I was thinking through as I stood there for like 45 minutes to think through, should I risk my vote? Should I not? The whole thing is like, we have 5, we have against 4. Those 4 are going to stick together. I cannot go into this vote 4-4. It is going to mess up this perfect situation I am in right now, which is my group of 4, they aren't budging because those people are blockading them off. And Sebastian and Bradley are going to do whatever I say. And Chelsea and Des are going to do whatever I say. And everyone thinks Bradley is in control.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I can come back. I was a little bit emotional on Ghost Island. They gave me a shitload of rice and I cooked the whole pot and I couldn't eat all of it. And it was this weird thing where I cried like, this is awful. Like I'm wasting this rice. There are starving people in the world. Now I know what that actually
Oh my God, that's so good.
I tried to save it overnight, but I woke up and there were ants all over it and I still had more rice to cook. And I was like, should I eat this rice with ants crawling all over it? Like it was just this crazy thing. But I got to go back into camp and tell the story of, you guys, there was this chance I could play this game. There's this chance I could risk my vote. I got to tell them the whole truth, knowing more people were going to go to Ghost Island and fill in with sand that I was telling the truth the whole time.
Yeah.
And what badge that put on Kellen was, she's with us. She's loyal. She's not willing to make moves for herself. She's a team player and she's an innocent woman. Like the whole thing like played into my story of being like the mama bear innocent lady. And also we would have been up shit creek, as they say, if I had lost my vote and it was 4 against 4 and I would have had to answer for all of that. Like, I don't know how I would have lied myself out of it if we had gone, those votes had come out and it was 4 for Bradley, 4 for Brendan. Who is all of a sudden the biggest freaking target out there? So I just felt like I was in way too great of a position. I felt that out there. And even watching back, I still stand by all that. So sorry, not sorry if it was boring.
I think that was perfect. Like whenever I see on Reddit someone criticizing it, I want to just like cut the past 4.5 minutes and like drop that in a comment. That was perfect.
Well, and I want to say, Kellen, I picked the worst fantasy team in Survivor history this year, but you were like the last person I had standing. And I had to defend you so many times that you weren't the LVP of episodes. And this was a move where people were trying to say this was an LVP move. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, guys, she had everybody. And since I've like met some of you, all of you have said the same thing. Like, I think even Brendan and Michael would say that was the right move. Like, she did the right thing here. And like trying to explain that when it's like, yeah, it's early in the game and yeah, you want to have advantages for later because look what it could do for Wendell. It literally pretty much handed him the win when he was able to give Laurel the necklace. But like, you need to worry about right then, because if you're not even there at Final 5, then what was the point? Like, so I agree with you. At that point, it was so blatantly 5-4. If you're on the other tribe, I'm probably sitting there going, you should probably go for the advantage. But on that tribe, it was blatantly 5-4.
If it was 5-4 the other way, I would have played in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the problem was that if I lost my vote, it was a huge swing, and also then a perception change of who I am as a person out there. Mm-hmm. And it just, I mean, I stand by it more strongly now than I did then. So yeah, I don't regret that one, obviously. And that one gets me a little heated. I
can see that. Well, while
that
you're
was
heated,
awesome.
While you're heated, let's talk about the tribal that actually came right after this decision to not do it. And I heard from Bradley that he was crying, but if you could give us like the breakdown on his crying at this
like
tribal.
how many tears?
Yeah,
like
do you collect them and you're just like, yeah, Bradley, I'm holding this over your head every time, or?
Well, I would say I wish I could give you a full report, but I was too busy running that tribal to pay attention.
Ooh, there it is.
No, I do remember that moment where they're like, and Michael says, and the 4 of us, we're voting for Bradley. And I remember like my heart was just like my heart was at my feet. Everything was all whopper jawed. And I remember like looking, he's actually over this shoulder. And I was like, I turned to look at him and I'm like, oh my dear God. And his eyes are like this big around and he is starting to tear up. And I'm like, I just like go into mode of like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And I'm like, girls, remember we were by the well, blah, 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 blah. And I like turned to Bradley and Sebastian. I'm like, remember plan B, like switching it all to Brendan, which was actually not that great of a read because we thought that Michael was with the 2 girls and Brendan was on the outs. So we thought Michael would, if it did work for 2 people, that he would play it for himself and one of the girls. So we were throwing it off on Brendan, which was a total misread on our part because Michael and Brendan were super tight. So I really wasn't the mastermind I thought I was. But in the moment, I did switch the vote. We had gone in voting for Michael. Bradley is tearing up. I don't know that I remember like tears falling, but I remember being like, is he going to pass out? Like, I don't think he's breathing right now. What'd you say, Alexa?
Do we need Dr. Joe?
Yeah. Like, do we need medical here? Like, I do remember him just being like frozen, like a deer, totally in headlights, and his eyes were starting to well up. And I'm like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. We can do this. And, just, they did show me a little bit kind of, but I was like repeating as Jeff was asking me, like he was asking me about the sun. And I was like, if any of us flip, the 4 of them are still so tight. They were sleeping together, blah, 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 blah. So anytime Jeff gave me a chance to talk, I was just reiterating, like, don't flip with those motherfuckers because they're not going to win. Like, so sorry, Mom.
Yeah, totally fine.
No, we're fine.
You're 400 F-bombs away from Troy's answer. Keep up the
yeah,
good work.
and a couple weird comments, so you're good.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't remember like tears streaming per se because I think they were just like frozen in his freaked out eyeballs. But we all came together and we stayed, and I don't think Sebastian was never flipping on us in that moment. Chelsea was Bradley's concern, but I felt like I had a great relationship with Chelsea. So I wasn't even really worried. I'm like looking at the girls, like we're good. Like looking at the girls being like, it's Bradley if they screw this up anyway. Like if we screw this up, Bradley's going home, not us. So like it really was. It was a really fun moment. I was so sad they didn't show us like flipping the vote in the middle of tribal.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
It was so fun while we were there. Maybe Bradley would not call it fun.
Well, I think that one. So during that tribal, all of that's going on. Bradley's like frozen. He's whatever. I kept saying Michael's biggest mistake was saying they were voting for Bradley. Is that what you agree with too? Like if he would have just said we're voting for one of you because you're letting Bradley run this game, do you think that he has a better chance of having them flip?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because nobody had any incentive because it was just like, well, Bradley's going to go home. So what do we care?
Yes. I mean, and that he did it in the way, like I was thinking today, because I was thinking through like getting ready for all this. And I was like, why did we believe him? Like, why did we believe that they were going to vote for Bradley? I probably should have been thinking like, they're probably saying Bradley, but they might actually vote for someone else. But like we all just bought in wholeheartedly, probably because of the vitriol that was like coming out of their eyeballs and their faces at how much they wanted Bradley out, that we believed them. But yeah, if they had not told us who they were going to vote for, I don't know that I would have voted for Bradley because if it hadn't been him, I wouldn't have wanted to deal with fixing that relationship. But I may have thrown my vote.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that was the biggest thing. And speaking of just believing Michael, speaking of just believing Michael, Kellen, it had to come up at some point, right? You reminded me. I forgot about it. It was out of my head.
Yeah. I bet.
But now, while we're on like this heater, we got to get the Bradley jokes in. But why did you believe Michael so easily later on in the game? What happened?
Well, I don't know why I didn't just ask to see the idol. I mean, that's a mistake. I'm not even going to try and justify that. It's really dumb. That's all I should have. I knew he was in a corner. I think two things tripped me up. One is he had found the idol. Had he not? Yes, he had found it.
He did.
I felt like I had spent enough time with him for those 20 plus days that I knew him well. And I felt like he wasn't lying to me. And I was asking him question after question after question. Where did you find it? I mean, he told me the entire story because he knew the entire story.
What was his story?
Oh, I mean, the exact story of it's these two idols. We found this part here. We had to find the other part under the shelter. It's split up. Like, I mean, he told me the whole thing. And I was asking him the question, like, what twine was it tied with? Which side, what did Ty's side look like? What did Scott's side look like? Like, I mean, question after question, and he just knew the whole story.
That's so good.
And so I think why I didn't ask him to see it was because he had answered all those things and I was staring him in the face that he wasn't lying to me for part of it, right? He really wasn't. 98% of the story was the truth.
Yeah. And of course, we don't see you asking all of these follow-up questions.
No, it doesn't really
justify you buying it blindly, of course.
And I should have just asked him to see it still. But in my mind, I felt like I had asked him enough 30 questions that I was just like, and if I'm going to make this huge flip in the game at this point, I need him to know that I'm on his side. And that I'm going to do what he wants me to do. And like that, now I'm in the Michael camp. And so I guess that's why I didn't push it. There's no excuse. I should have just asked him to see it. But he was telling me the truth on a lot of it. That's the two big things that really took me way too long to get on board was that Des was coming after me. And I was blinded because they said Des and Chelsea are coming after me. And I had just spent the afternoon with Chelsea on the Chopper Award. Like, I just didn't believe it. And I'm like, I was closer with Chelsea and I'm like, Chelsea, did you do this? Like, it's okay if so, like we can rework this, we can restart. And Chelsea's like, I do not know what you're talking about. Like with tears in her eyes, like, I'm not lying to you. We're not flipping on you. And so I didn't believe Des because Chelsea had been brought into the story and I didn't think Chelsea was flipping on me. And then with Michael, I believed him because he was telling me the truth about the idol that had been found. the truth was that it was Jonathan's and not his.
Yeah.
And so those two things are what was my fatal flaw. One of my many fatal flaws was when there were things coming through the grapevine, I discounted everything because it didn't fit with what I knew to be true, instead of being willing to understand, like, duh, it's a game of telephone. Like, of course, this is getting to you and it's not going to 100% be true, but there is still truth in it. And I couldn't like suss out the details. That's where it got really complicated for me, which is, yeah, it was really complicated. So that's why I believed Michael. I set up that whole thing. I went to Laurel and said, are you willing to flip with Wendell or flip for Wendell? Me, Michael, and Laurel had conversations. I knew it in that moment that Michael was voting for Wendell. I knew that I could throw I asked Matt Van Wagen, and I was like, please, will you go back and look at the footage? Because I'm like 95% sure I held up the 2 votes and said, my gut is telling me I should vote for Wendell right now, and I can't pull the trigger. And did you lose me?
No,
we're here. You're good.
That I like held that up, like feeling it, and I just couldn't pull the trigger in that moment. Even though I had like worked with Michael to set it all up, I just had freaked myself out. And I thought when Dom and Wendell start to whisper at each other, and Wendell had gotten up to tell Laurel what to do, she's listening to him. Dom and Wendell are whispering. I thought they're whispering about playing their idol. I always thought they only had one. But Dom's wearing the necklace, and I'm like, things have gotten too fishy. I've gotten things so worked up. What if they're going to play this idol now? And I just couldn't. I just didn't pull the trigger. And yeah, I lost $1 million that night.
Yeah, because if you end up voting both votes on Wendell, Wendell goes home. And then you're in a situation. I mean, would Wendell have seen it coming? Because there were a lot of times, at least from the viewer perspective, that we were like, wow, Wendell seems like he's gonna have to play his idol this night. And then he never did. And like, was that because his relationships are so good, or was he just like that confident? Like, if you would have done that night, if you just went up and wrote down Wendell, would like he have seen it coming and played the idol, or was he like that confident in your relationship with him?
No, I think he was that intuitive that he just felt that I wasn't going to do it. Like, I think he probably knew. I don't know how much Laurel had told him, because Laurel was privy to the conversations of me, Laurel, and Michael talking about possibly flipping on him. I don't know if because he knew all of that and he could suss out that I wasn't going to make the move. He was just so incredibly intuitive that I think he could probably feel it. And he was probably feeling out in that moment whether or not, like, he checked with me. He's like, you're voting for Laurel, right? Like, things are getting crazy. You're voting for Laurel, right? In the way of like, are you going to be okay? Like, he made me feel like in that moment he was watching out for me.
Yeah.
And then it was in the moment where all of a sudden I sit back down and I'm like, holy shit. He just did all of that math for himself, not for me. So I think he was just that intuitive. I don't think that he was like recklessly thinking we all just loved him that much when we didn't. I think if I had decided at some point along the way that I was going to flip, I think he would pick up on it.
Yeah. When it came to Laurel, did you think that you'd be able to kind of chip away at her and eventually get her to flip, or was it just one of those conversations that you had every day and didn't think you were getting anywhere? Oh, that was a good question.
Yeah, that was a good question. When did I think, because there were definitely moments where I thought maybe I can get Laurel. One was after that tribal. She was actually really pissed at Wendell that night of the Michael vote, because she found out then that Wendell knew that I had 2 votes. She knew that Wendell knew that if idols had been played, Laurel would have gone home, and she didn't tell him. Right? Gotcha. So she knows that Wendell threw her under the bus to protect himself by having her vote for me and me vote for her. And so Wendell had like damage control to do that night. Like, Laurel was really upset with Wendell after that tribal. And I thought maybe, like, she and I had some conversations. I thought maybe I've said a couple times, so sorry to repeat myself, but I was like, Wendell is like dating both of us, like dating two women at once. Like, we're at the same restaurant. Like, the waitresses know, like, you're here for the main course and I'm here for dessert. And like, that jackass like won't even take us to different restaurants. Like, he's just like openly like dating both of us, and he doesn't care whether it's me or whether it's you. He was protecting himself. They're pushing us against each other. It's in their best interest. If you and I aren't working together, come on, Laurel, like we have to do this. So that was one window where I thought maybe I had her. But I wake up the next morning, she and Wendell go off for the sunrise and have a conversation and come back. And it's like, well, there is that closed window. Like, he just roped her right back in. Who knows what he said to her. And then the second time where I thought maybe we had a chance was when they did leave us back at camp for the loved ones visit. You'll have to ask her. I think she was really considering at that moment to come with the girls, possibly. She was, as in considering it. I don't think like, oh, we almost had her. Like, I think those were the times where she was actually thinking, what if I do switch? But I had put those 2 votes on her and she didn't ever trust me again. And so, I mean, and I don't blame her.
I found on the loved ones one because that was just, I remember during our recap of that, like, I forget like what you said in that, but I was like, everything Kellen is saying is right. Like, if I was in her position, I would be pissed. Like, with Wendell getting it and then Wendell going to the whole go silent thing. And I thought Laurel was going to flip then too, because like we talked about earlier, that family visit is just so emotional and so above the game that when you do get burned during it, it's that much worse.
And you got LVP that episode, by the way. I defended the hell out of you, but they still gave you LVP. I just wanted to throw that in there. It's like no matter what you did, Kellen, but like I think
lovable, valuable player. That's what that means.
Ooh, there it is.
I'm saying it because everybody who would vote, they were just watching the edit and like, oh my God, she never had anything. But like you said, you really thought that you could pull Laurel at these positions. And like that was like my argument the whole time. Like, I think Kellen like knows what she's doing. It's just not happening. And I defended you one too many times because you even admitted voting for Laurel twice was, not a good move. But I defended that one too because I was, you're the only person left on my team at that point.
No, in the moment, knowing what I thought I knew was that Michael. One, if Michael has an idol, that's what I believed at first. And then once things got spicy at Tribal and things are nervous and like I know that Dom and Wendell have an idol between the two of them, I thought, oh man, I could be totally screwed here. I felt like I really was protecting myself with what I knew. My mistake is not that I misplayed the extra vote. The mistake is that I totally misread the entire situation and Dom and Wendell were running circles around me. That's not real. In the moment, from what I knew, it actually was the right I mean, it's simple math.
Yeah.
It's not, I didn't actually mistake the math of it or misplay it. I misplayed the entire game. It's not that vote, writing it down. Oh, and another thing for the haters while y'all are is everyone's like, it's so annoying. She wrote her name upside down. She couldn't write it right side up. And I was like,
oh my, I have not heard that. Let's hear it.
Oh yeah. Like everyone's so frustrated that I wrote Laurel's name down upside down. Well, hello. People can see you the people who are sitting on the booth in the stoops or whatever at Tribal can see you. So I'm like trying to get the vote out from my pants and like get it on the table, write down 2 names, fold 2 pieces of paper and get them in the urn while everyone can clearly see my back. I'm not going to be like the grammar police or like oh, I'm perfectly, I want to write this so beautifully. Like, I'm trying to protect my game at that point. So if people can't stand to read Michaela's name upside down,
the extra vote forever.
Yes,
forever.
Would you, if you were sitting in those stoops, like, would you watch? Was it just like a blatant thing where people would watch each other?
Yeah, you definitely.
I would do it.
You're definitely watching. You want to see how long people are taking. Like, you can look to see what their elbows do. Like, you definitely watch.
And are there like better seats than others? Like, were there like people like, I know production probably puts you into the seats, but were there like times where you're like, damn, I wish I was sitting over there so I could see what that person was writing down?
First of all, I've always said, like, if by the grace of God I had a chance to go play Survivor again, I would put in my contract that I will sit in the back row at Tribal.
Really?
I think this is one of my theories of why men do better in this game, because they always get to sit in the back at Tribal. And if you get to sit and watch people looking back and forth to each other to see who's whispering to who, to see who's talking to who, to see glances between who, that is a huge advantage. I got to sit in the back row, I think, just once. And I was like, holy shit, I can see everything that's happening.
Well,
like,
is it a height thing? Is that why they do it? Like, why are guys in the back?
I'm taller than Dom. Like, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know if it's a height thing.
I don't know if it was this season. Maybe I'm just misremembering for some reason. I'm thinking it was Angela. But was it Angela who like turned around and stared at somebody in like the back row at a Tribal? Or am I thinking of a different
season? She did.
It was Angela. So Angela turns around and stares at somebody, and that scene is so bizarre. Like, that's like, what are you looking at? Like, why are you doing this? Like, I think she was staring at Dom.
I think it was the Chelsea vote.
It was one of them.
Crazy.
But whatever it was, that's looked at as weird. But if Dom is just staring at Angela from behind, nobody's questioning that. So I totally get what you're saying. And like,
they can point. They can point to people behind people's backs.
Hey, Boston Rob wouldn't have been able to turn around and put his hand on somebody's shoulder if he was sitting in the front row.
Literally, people are pointing and giving direction on what to do in Tribal from the back row. Men get to sit in the back row. It is an extreme disadvantage. Extreme.
Yeah.
Like I feel obviously very strongly about that.
I'm seeing this. That's why Ryan Ulrich didn't win too, because he was the only guy who sat in the front row every single Tribal because he's so small. He was in the front. That's a really good point.
Now that I've pointed it out, wait until you see how many times people are giving silent direction from the back row and how often it is men.
So this goes back to a question I had like right at the beginning. You said that Sebastian was trying to communicate with you during one Tribal, and that this all like wraps up together now. How do you communicate like silently at Tribal Council without being super obvious that you're like winking at the person right next to you? How do you do that discreetly?
I don't know that you do, especially from the front row. But I mean, sometimes like people will be talking, and sometimes if you're lucky enough that the person you want to look at is the only person to your right and everyone is looking to the left because someone's talking down there, you can kind of try to take advantage of that. I mean, you're allowed to talk, so you can.
Yeah, well, now you've
seen those like new live Tribals.
Yeah.
You can get up and have powwows or whatever. So it doesn't always have to be subtle, but yeah, I guess you try to look for your moments, or if someone is talking and saying something and it's something that I'm looking at Des, and if someone behind me is saying, well, Kellen says she doesn't even really care what Des has to say. And I like look at Des and I'm like, that's not true. So it's a little bit of trying to respond to things that people are saying as much as possible. But yeah, in the front row, it's a lot harder to do.
I'm laughing because like in my head, I'm thinking like that Brendan Tribal Council, it was Bradley, Brendan, Michael in that back row. And I remember that vividly because all three of them were just like looking over at each other, and you're in the front row probably like, what the heck? Everything's going on over here. Like everything's happening behind you. And that makes it a lot harder when you're trying to read who Brendan and Michael are going to give an idol to or who they're aligned with and everything. And you're relying on Bradley, who's got the blurry vision because, it got misty in there. Yeah.
Who says he's not a sensitive soul? He's got those misty eyes when he's going to get voted out. That's like one thing that I feel like is an extreme disadvantage as far as weird game things, that there aren't very many, and it's like a pure game, and they don't, it feels very pure while you're out there, but that's something that really bothers me. So
that's fantastic. I feel like I'm not going to be able to see Tribal Councils the same way again, because I think you're really right about that.
Just wait until you start watching how much stuff happens direction from the back row.
Wow.
No, it's true. Yeah. Well, another thing, so we've like kind of talked game, but I want to know like Chelsea and Des. We didn't see much from them. You were with them almost the entire game. Wow, I actually want to ask about the Angela thing too. But Chelsea and Des, like what was it with like Chelsea and Des that you know, Des, I feel like should have clicked on TV better than she did, and I feel like it just didn't click. Like Chelsea, like pregame, I had pinned her as like, I'm not really sure. There's always like one or two people where you're like, but like it seemed like you were tight with them. It seemed like they were a part of like every conversation too. Like they weren't just like there. Like I feel like they like I feel like Chelsea had input in a lot of things, and whether that comes across well on TV or not, I don't know. But like what was it like with them that you felt so strongly Des wouldn't have turned on you, and why did you feel so comfortable with Chelsea in the first place? Because I know Bradley never trusted her.
Okay, so two completely separate relationships, which is interesting because I know in some ways, well, three with Chelsea, Angela, and Des, right? In some ways, they seem like they're a group, like, oh, they're Navidi women, and then they didn't play a lot. They weren't or something. I don't know, but they're actually extremely different people and played very differently. My relationship was three different relationships. So with Des and I played every single day together. While we were both in the game. She and I got along really well, and especially in Malolo 1.0, when we went over there with Bradley, like Des and Bradley were hitting it off. They had fun, like making fun of people. Like Des is electric. Like she is someone who I could watch all day long. She is gorgeous inside and out. Like on fire. Like she is a magnetic person. And she and I like I felt like she was, in my perspective, I felt like she was like, oh, Kellen, she's smart and she knows what's going on. Like Des made me feel smart. Des made me feel like I could help her through the game. And like I think she was playing me, obviously. Like she just like totally had me falling into that. Although we were helping each other, we voted together every time. We had never gone to tribal and not talked about what we were going to do until the merge. And then I left her out of the vote. Lost her.
Why did you leave her out of that vote?
Well, I intentionally left Angela out very clearly because she spoke everything all the time. And she was still like, when all of us had decided, well, of course not, we're not going to vote with Chris. Angela and Des were still talking to him. Angela a lot, and Des, I think Des liked hanging out with Chris. And so I witnessed that as like, is she also with them? And just like better safe than sorry. Which was really a bad idea. I didn't loop in, and I don't think I realized how much they would see that as me not looping them in versus no one not looping me in. And I think Des took it really personally. And she's probably should have. We had been working really closely together every single day, and I didn't tell her. And she felt like in that moment, Kellen thinks I can't handle it. Kellen thinks I'm not actually with her. Like she's dead to me, and like good on Des for making that switch. So that's when I ruined my relationship with Des. Chelsea, I think in the time we were together at Malolo, in Navidi and Malolo, we were like slowly building a relationship. I think we both realized we were like strong, smart women. I felt like she is more of a challenge, like liability than me, believe it or not, because she's so tiny. I mean, then she ends up winning all these individual immunities and she's like a super athlete, but she seemed tiny and like she couldn't lift a lot of stuff. And I had puzzle. So when I first started the game and I was worried about being the person voted out if we lost immunities, like, oh, Kellen's got to go, she sucks at challenges. I thought Chelsea was kind of like a shield in that sense, that she seemed weaker than I did from a physical standpoint. And so I wanted to start to work a relationship with her. And then the three of us girls had a great relationship at Malolo. She did start to do like some shady stuff. I caught her like looking for an idol, and then she lied to me about it like right before we swapped. And then she votes out Bradley, and like there's that. But really pretty quickly, Chelsea and I picked up on like, holy shit, Dom and Wendell are going to come after any smart wit. Like Dom was so vocal about like, Libby, she looks pretty, but she's actually smart. Like, how dare that beautiful woman have a brain inside her head? She's gotta go. So like Chelsea and I were like, well, we have to stick together here because we are going to be targets from these men. If Libby, like, they're like, oh, she's just supposed to be quiet, but she talks strategy and she's got to go. Like, it was our warning sign that women have to stick together because those men are not keeping strong women around. So that's what really glued me and Chelsea together post-merge. Even if before the merge we were a little bit shady with each other.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And so Chelsea got like the worst edit ever. I mean, what was Chelsea's like? She like literally the worst edit of all time.
Of all time.
Of all time. Like the numbers say it, everything says it. But what was like Chelsea's? I know, like, what were you perceiving like Chelsea's game to be? Was that somebody you wanted to sit at the end with, or were you like a little scared of her, or were you just like nobody's even thinking she's playing this game?
I was a little scared that she was willing to flip on me because she was smart enough and strategic enough. She was following along with every single vote. She and I always talked everything out. She and I didn't lie to each other. I did know she was talking to Dom. So she was like working those guys. Like Chelsea had just as much of a pulse on the game as I did. And I think that she kind of got screwed by the fact that she and I were playing a similar game and we made the same moves and we voted for the same people. And we both decided to try to flip and make a move on Dom and Wendell at the exact same time. And you can only tell the double story one time. And I think I just was a little bit more dramatic. I think they liked that they needed an antagonist. They couldn't make Chelsea an antagonist. I think she got screwed because her story was close enough to mine that there wasn't room to tell the nuance between what I was doing versus what Chelsea was doing.
Do you know who Chelsea wanted to go to the final 3 with?
No. I don't think she wanted to take me. I think she probably wanted to go with Angela, Laurel, and Donathan.
Okay.
Yeah, I could see that. Because I'd read that she was pretty tight with Dom, but past that, I didn't know. I figured maybe Des or maybe you, but yeah, just trying to understand like her relationships and Dez's too. I feel like we didn't really get a sense of who Des was close with other than Chelsea, I guess.
Me, Des, and Chelsea were like really, really like the Navidi women. And then we would decide whether or not we were going to bring Angela in. So it was like the 4 of us, but it was actually the 3 of us, but it was actually the 2 of us, which was me and Chelsea, right? Like that's kind of the hierarchy of how I see it. I don't know.
Yeah. So that I was going to ask you too, then going back again to when you were on Malolo, I guess 2.0 or 3.0, whatever it was at that point, when it was you, James, Michael, Angela, and Des. Why did you decide to vote out James instead of voting out Angela? Because like it seemed like Angela was really in like the Chris camp. So what was it that said, I got to get rid of James here. I can't work with these Malolo people?
Well, I had to get rid of James because he's super smart and not an emotional decision maker. And that is my sweet spot. My sweet spot is to find people who really believe that I was this sweet lady who cried all the time, who didn't have strategy. And like James came over and he's like, this is the percentage probability that the tribe swaps happened this way and that way. And I am a track coach, like, but using words that I didn't understand. And I was like, what the hell is going on with this guy? Like,
track coach of all time.
Yes. And I had also started to nurture my relationship with Michael. And like whether or not I was going to go work with Michael was kind of heating up the whole time. Like even in Malolo 1.0 of, do I trust this kid? Do I not? Could we ever work together? Can we not? And so when James came over and James starts talking about what happened with the Morgan vote. And like, and that he figured out like, oh, but with the numbers, we figured out that if they were going to vote for Angela, I was like, done, over. Like you already understand this way more than anyone who I can ever have around. Like you are smarter than me and I cannot take you anywhere. And so I just didn't, I couldn't, and he wouldn't give in to like any emotion at all. James would, like I was like trying to talk to him about, like we did talk about real things. He's a sweet, kind, loving, hey James, if you're there, like loving person who I can relate to, but he can relate to people, but he's not going to make emotional decisions. And like, that's my sweet spot, was like to try to get people there. And so I had no way. So my only work to do was to draw Angela back. And like, I feel like that's one of the times where I was like pretty good at reading the situation, figuring out like Angela's this military person. She thinks these people broke on her the promise, but I have to get her to understand that we are family. We would never do that to you. Those people. And I thought in this moment, I was perfectly working. She's never going back to those guys. They screwed her over. She wanted to be loyal to the end. They ruined it, and I will not. And so I thought I had forever sealed Angela working with me until the end in that moment. And so there was no use like trying to work with James. I wanted to seal that with Angela, who I felt like could be a number for me.
Yeah, because like when you're watching it back on TV, did you almost like think that you misremembered working with James? Because up to that point, Malolo looked like they were going to like overthrow Navidi, and it looked like you and Michael had started to bond, and like James was really the only one left from like original Malolo, other than Michael, that was like, wow, he's the underdog who could actually pull off the win here. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, Kellen's going to do it. Kellen's going to side with them. And we'd seen like nothing from Angela, nothing from Des. Angela looked like an outcast the entire time. And then you go and you vote off James. And that was actually the night where Alexa and I like text each other. We're like, this isn't fun. Like, what is happening? Like, what are we watching? And like, I feel like a big problem with Ghost Island was just the editing in general, you know, which I know you clearly know, but like that episode was very strange to me because I was like, what is Kellyn doing? She should have sided with James. Like, I thought she was definitely siding with James. Why did that not happen? And then the next week, Bradley ends up getting voted out. So it was like, everything was coming up red flags.
Wait, so why did you think I should work with James there?
I don't even know if I thought you should have. I just kind of thought you were going to.
Yeah, because I don't think I thought that.
Because of what I was watching on TV, and because you guys had already like decimated the Malolos, but it looked like you guys were like, hey, Michael, get over here under our wing. I thought like this was going to be like a way for like you and Bradley and everybody to like kind of take a shot at Chris, which was get rid of Angela, who looked like was the only person who really could stand Chris. You and Des could get rid of Angela. Nobody on the VD would be mad at you. You could still keep the numbers. And like then it like kind of fit with the storyline of like Malolo is going to pull this thing out, which they never did. But that's what I thought was going to happen this entire pre-merge. So that's why at that moment I was like shocked that you actually didn't work with James. Like I was really surprised.
I mean, for me, maybe I misread it, but to me, it was so much more obvious that Angela was going to be a potential GOAT for me than James ever would have been.
Yeah.
And
I had started to build enough relationship with Des. Well, Des was with me. And then I saw she and Michael getting pretty close. And I thought really that Des had pulled in Michael quite a bit. I mean, Michael was telling us everything at this point. Michael's telling us that James is trying to get Ange. Michael's telling us Michael is feeding me and Des. And so I felt like James was the least likely person to do what I wanted him to do moving forward out of the three others. I felt like I was making the power, like getting rid of the potential power player at that point.
And was there any like thought in your head that Angela might have felt like left out by Navidi and like worked with James and Michael, or like did that like because you felt like you kind of had Michael a little bit, you weren't even worried about it?
I was worried that Angela felt left out, but because I knew she felt left out and upset, then I knew that it was the perfect time for me. Like we have that conversation. They show a little bit of it while she and I are down at the ocean and like the waves are crashing over her, like of me being like, well, what I want is for you to like come work with me. And like what I was doing with her was saying like, I can't believe those boys, they went against us. But no, me, Bradley, Sebastian, Des, Chelsea, you, like we are family. Like we are not gonna, we're not gonna mess this up. Like I can't believe those boys did that to you. I mean, I'm so silly for thinking, but right, like to me, I'm like, perfect. This is one of my people. One of my people who's gonna come in and work with me, and she's falling for the story. And I thought I had her, so I don't know. I mean, it is true when people say like Kellen was closed-minded from the Navidi thing. It's true. It's just in a very different way. Everyone thinks I was closed-minded with Dom and Wendell. I was closed-minded with all of the other people. Like, and Sebastian and Angela, they don't flip on them either. It's just my mistake was that I thought they were going to come with me thinking that that was better for their game, and they didn't.
What was your relationship with Angela like before this vote, directly after this vote, and then for the rest of the season? Because she's another one who we really didn't get much from, and that vote sounded like it was something super pivotal for you guys, but then we never really saw you two interact again after that.
It was Angela and I like had we would go snail hunting together, and like we would have really good conversations, and on a personal level we would talk some. Like, she had just gone through a divorce, I had been through a divorce not that long before, so we would talk a lot. She was a little bit of a wild card in that I felt like I was never really sure if I could loop her in on what was happening or not. And so then I think I would hurt her feelings because I would be so close to her emotionally. And then every time I was feeling like I would have to go back to her and be like, Dom and Wendell told me that I wasn't allowed to tell you. Or trying to make reasons why I like wasn't looping her in. I felt a very true, close relationship, emotional relationship with Angela from a personal standpoint. It always felt like I was playing with fire from a strategic standpoint because I didn't know what she would say or what she would do with anyone. But as it was coming down the line in the middle there with the James thing, I felt like I had really solidified the fact that she would do what I would talk to her about.
Yeah.
And so it was really hard to figure out how to work with her exactly. And then when I lost her after the Chelsea vote, that was hard. Mostly because I think we were all just frustrated and giving in and like defeated at that point. And like, I really wanted her and I really wanted Laurel to like take these risks to say like, girls, it's over for all of us.
Yeah.
Does it matter to you which order we go in? Because it's over. And like that they wouldn't come over with me was really, really hard. And it was hard with Angela that she didn't. But she didn't know she was doing that against me. Dom and Wendell told her Donathan was going home that night. They didn't tell her it was me, but she was voting with them.
Yeah. Because at that point they knew as long as they knew where her vote was going, they had enough and it didn't matter anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you see, like, after the game, after it's all over, did you have these conversations with these people and did they notice like, oh crap, like Kellen was right, I was just like a walking vote out at this point? Or were people just kind of playing the game and seeing it differently?
They were probably seeing it differently, right? I'm sure they were. Like, I don't think anyone, like, my version of the story is like, duh, Dom and Wendell were going to beat you. Why didn't you come with me? But, like, with the edit, and I try to stay away from my edit. I let you guys defend that for me. But what doesn't make sense from the edit is the reason why I got voted out of that game, and I thought maybe I was delusional for a while, and I like called Wendell throughout the season as my edit was taking a total shit. Like, I call him one night, like bawling my eyes out, like, am I completely a delusional person that I got voted out of this game because no one liked me and I was so awful and like all this stuff? Because like what I think is that people liked me and I had built too many strong relationships, and that's why you couldn't take me to the end. And he's like, I will three-way call in Dom right now. I promise you that the reason why we voted you out is because you were the last threat to that game to win. And like, so like the edit even made me question like, what the hell? Like what I thought happened to me out there was that I played a little bit too hard too early. I lost my strategy shield. And I wasn't willing to take the risk early enough. Like I should have gone with Chris Noble, or I should have flipped the Malolos to take the risk. You know, the reason why I feel like I can defend myself is like, I kept thinking there are 2 people in power. There are 7 of us.
Yeah.
There are 2 people in power. There are 6 of us.
Look at the math.
Right? Like I kept thinking that the window was too big. It was so much bigger than it actually was. And the thing that really hurt more than anything about the game was not emotionally hurt, but like strategically, hurt was when I saw when Wendell told Laurel he had his idol.
It was so early, right?
It was so early.
Yeah.
That was like,
was that final 10?
After the merge? Like directly after the merge?
I think it's 11. Like, I think she knew even it's not the split tribe. I don't think it's a split tribe.
No, yeah, it was before that, I think.
It might have been right after the Chris boot.
So
it was early. It was very early.
And also watching Laurel say, like, I can't beat them, but I'm going to do it anyway. I didn't blame her until I had seen the show, because while I was out there, I thought she thought, and there was a good story that was Naviti versus Malolo.
Mhm.
I was pitching to Dom and Wendell, don't freaking take a Malolo. What if they sweep all the Malolo votes? They're the underdogs. Like, it has to be 3 Naviti sitting at the end. So, like, I thought, like, Laurel just thinks she can get all the Malolo votes and then hoping that she can swing one of the other. But then to, like, watch her know that she couldn't beat them and watch her know how long in advance that she had so much more knowledge than I did to flip on them, and that she didn't. Like, that is the most painful thing, is, like, I feel like she was playing the game, we were all playing a game of poker. She could see their cards and I couldn't. I was trying to do what she should have done.
Yeah, because if Laurel gets rid of the two of them and it comes out that, like, they were all closely aligned and somehow she still got and I thought Laurel made a good point at her final tribal. And I mean, I wasn't out there, so it could be complete BS, but her thing was making that move would have been good for all of you. It wouldn't have been good for me.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been good for me. And I thought that was a great point. But at the same time, if she gets rid of the two of them at any point, that has to make Laurel look so good in everybody's mind that she's very athletic. She's very smart. If she can pull out 1 or 2 immunity challenge wins, she's sitting at the final 3. And instead of it being the Wendell and Dom show, it's the Laurel, you got rid of the biggest threat in the game. How does this make you feel? Like that has to be, like, as a jury member, you have to have that perspective. And, like, did you know that she was as tight with Wendell and Dom? I know you didn't know about the idol, but, like, were you cued in on that? Like, she was, like, with them and Donovan was with them, or was that really, like, as secretive as they made it seem?
Not until final 10. Then we all figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
And you still couldn't pull, like, 6 against those 4.
Mm-mm.
Well, because it was the stupid split thing. Not stupid.
Yeah, it was the split vote, and Sebastian was with those guys.
So you lost Sebastian by that point, to the point where he was more with them than with you?
I think I always emotionally had Sebastian. I never strategically had Sebastian.
Gotcha.
I think he wanted to work with the guys always. And, like, if you heard Dom and Wendell say, like, we were playing back to back, like, it was the circle of everyone around us and we had our backs to each other. And we, like, that's why we couldn't turn on each other, because one of us would be next. They had Sebastian convinced from very early on, we are the 3 strong guys. We will go to the end and then we'll duke it out there. And so I don't think I ever strategically had Sebastian. Bradley had Sebastian strategically.
Mm-hmm.
I had him emotionally, and then he was looking for other guys to team up with after Bradley was gone.
Yeah, I got you. That makes sense. Because we see Sebastian vote out Jenna, and it's like nothing. You know, like, here we are. Like, the only thing we knew about either of them was, like, that they were flirting on the island, and then it's like he just votes her out like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Like, were you, like, at all surprised, like, that Sebastian would easily vote out Jenna, or was it, like, obvious while you're out there? And it was a huge difference between emotional and strategic.
Sebastian was, like, Naviti strong.
Really? That's so funny. God, that's so funny.
Yeah.
And then he comes up with that great move at final 6. And what were you going to say about that? If you want to talk about that, because I really want to talk about this final 6 thing, because this changed the entire game.
No, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know.
Right. Well, final 6.
Yeah, I think Sebastian was playing into the Naviti numbers because he had the final 3 promise with Dom and Wendell. And then I was working him extremely hard to make him feel emotionally comfortable there. And it's just, like, to think about how it was emotionally making him feel comfortable to go to the end with Dom and Wendell.
Yeah, exactly. Know it.
Yeah. You know, it's like, oh God, totally missed that.
So then this final 6 happens, and we saw this because as I'm watching it, before we got to the finale, like, I had said I thought Wendell was going to win. Alexa had said she thought Dom was going to win. When this move happened right at final 6, I was like, Dom's going to win this game. Angela, like, Sebastian comes up with this great plan to get rid of Dominic. This is like, I couldn't believe it was Sebastian who was coming up with this. And then Angela goes and spills all of the beans, and what I honestly believe is one of the worst moves in Survivor.
That was bonkers.
I was like mad. I was like, God, the one time we could have seen something. And I love Dominic, but I was like, we could have seen something. But then he gets to tribal, and I honestly thought Dominic's move was incredible. He didn't have to play his idol. He made the big stink. He was able to convince everybody not to go through with the plan that they originally had went for because they didn't have you sitting there to run that tribal council. But there you go. See, but really, they didn't have that one person who was going to run it because it was like Sebastian was in control of it. So he got swayed. He was like, damn, my guys found me out. Now I have to kind of just do my thing. But I thought this was such a great move. But once we got to the final tribal, which was mainly you and Michael talking back and forth, you were very, very against what Dominic did there. What did we not see that made you so bummed on Dom there?
Don't you just wish I could just sometimes answer really short? I was
go.
I want like a whole like Kellen.
Let me tell you A1, A2, B7. Like
let's go. Let's we
give it all. Let's hear it.
Okay.
The beginning of our new novel.
What happened? Yes. What happened at the final 6 when we were witnessing it? Sebastian's in the game. If you think about it from my perspective, we don't know that one of those idols is fake. Because he's playing them up so adamantly that they're both real. The afternoon before I go home, literally, Wendell had told me I was going home. Sebastian had told me I was going home. Dom still chooses to lay into me on the beach a few hours before my tribal about how I lied to him, about how you were pretending, like you're just as bad as I am. Like you looked me in the face and said you were voting for someone else and you voted for Chelsea or you voted for Wendell, like just at me. And I was literally like, I had given in at this point. Like Wendell had told me, I love you, girl, but you're going home. Like we can't keep you. Sebastian had said with like tears in his eyes, like, I'm sorry, Kellen, I tried everything I can. And Dom still chooses to lay into me at that point. So that's my last experience with Dom. Then we're at the final 6. We're watching it all go down. Dom is grandstanding this whole story, and they're starting to sort of go at Donathan, like, why you say everything, and you're loud at tribal, and you're dropping these truth bombs, and blah, blah, blah. And Donathan is
Poor Donathan's just trying to play.
Yeah. And like, from my perspective, I'm feeling Donathan's point at this point. Donathan thinks he's out that night, thinks he's going home, and he's just reserved to that fact and has tears in his eyes. He's not crying outright, but he's starting to get teary as Dom's kind of going after him. And then that's when Dom holds up both idols and he says, Donathan, I know you're a fan of this game, so on your way out, you should choose. I'm going to let you choose which idol I play on this night that you go home. And that was just so icky.
We didn't see that. I don't think they showed us that.
No.
They didn't show that.
Yeah, I think I would have felt strongly about that.
And like now I see it. Now I see that one of them was fake. Now, in hindsight, watching back, one of them was fake. This is huge gameplay. Like I respect Dom's game as much as people don't believe that I do. I really do respect Dom's game. And that he had to do that and all that. But it felt so personal. And I felt like he kicked me while I was down on the beach. Like, I'm like, dude, like I'm crying. Like I rarely talk about production, but like one of the producers came and said, Kellen, let's go. Like as Dom was like, like one of the producers said, like, Kellen, come on, let's go ahead and like pulled me out of the situation. And then like, I felt kicked while I was down. I watched what I thought was Dom having 2 real idols kicking Donathan while he was down because they're telling the story that Donathan's going home. We don't know in that moment that they're setting it all up for this Sebastian blindside thing. And like, I don't know. It was just something that while I had been out there for 35 days, I could not get over it. I couldn't get over those tears in Donathan's eyes and Dom saying like, my parting gift to you, since you're a fan, is to choose one of these.
It's so cocky.
Like, it was so much seemed like he was kicking him while I was down that I couldn't get over it. And like, you know, that's my bad, maybe, that I can't see past that. And in the moment, now I can look back, I could see where it was, but I think that really rubbed me the wrong way. And I noticed in some of Sebastian's exit press that same move kind of, Sebastian remembered that as well. So I think it was that step, kicking Donathan while I was down, which was just solidifying his strategy, but we didn't know that. And then it was too hard to like overcome. And then anytime Dom tried to like backtrack on that and say like, but it was just a strategy move. It was just a strategy move. Like it was too late at Final Tribal for us to see it that way.
And yeah, because Sebastian, like that was like the first time we saw like real emotion from Sebastian on the season. They didn't show much of him, but at Final Tribal, you saw him sitting there and like he was like, "That's one way to call it something." Like you saw like real anger from Sebastian.
Really upset,
I was like, wow, like I'm sitting here as a fan going, "Holy crap, Dom made a fantastic move with the information he was given. Good on him." And then to see the reaction, I was like, are they being bitter or what did we not see? And this makes so much more sense. Did Donathan pick the right idol?
No, then that's the
what
other
did Donathan do?
like, that's the other thing is Donathan then picked Andrea's idol. I forget which happened. So then Dom doesn't even end up playing the idol. I know I should know this, but I can't figure it out in my mind right now. But like, however it happened, like Donathan then like as tears in his eyes says, "Okay, fine, use that one." And then Dom is like, no, actually, we're going to do this. And it was just like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like, you just made Donathan choose, and then now you're not even gonna let him go through with that.
And like, you're making him cry. Like, really, this guy's gonna vote for you in 2 days.
Yeah, we didn't get it at the time because we didn't see it was and by we, I mean the final 5. The first 5 were apparently clear-minded, pizza bellies full for weeks and could see all of it more clearly than us. So yeah, I think it was just that. And like, I 150% believe that Dom was doing it as a strategic move.
Yeah.
Now, watching back and knowing Dom as a real person, like it was not to kick Donathan while he was down. It was not to grandstand. It was to sell this story that he needed to sell. But I just couldn't see that. And I just didn't have enough time to like figure all of that out. I think I was still too feely about the whole experience. And then also Dom called me a liar at Final Tribal when I asked him a question, and that also didn't go over well with me. So
yeah,
I think part of my vitriol that you all see is because my first question to Dom, I asked him something and he was like, "We never had that conversation." And I was like, "Yeah, we did." And so it was, I had gone into the tribal being like, Wendell's the one who hurt my feelings. Like when Dom and I never were super close. He didn't hurt my feelings when Dom voted me out. It hurt my feelings when Wendell, who had told me like, "Oh, he always did this." Like when we were like across the way, he'd like always give me this. Yeah, Wendell's the one who hurt my feelings. Wendell was the one who I thought I was friends with, and he kicked me out. So it wasn't that. But then when Dom like sort of said I was lying at my first question at Final Tribal, and then it was on.
Yeah. Because you could tell there was like real aggression against Dom from like you at that tribal council, which I was surprised at, because not that I thought that you would be like heavily against Dom or like heavily for Wendell. I just thought like somebody else would be the one going against Dom or something like that. And like right away, I was like, I think I might have put down like you were going to end up voting for Dominic, like when I was doing like the jury roulette thing. And then like right away I was like, wow, I was wrong on that. Okay. That was my bad. But like, I didn't really see the whole final 6 thing coming, obviously. Donathan's actually in our group chat, and he said it was Andrea's that he picked.
Yeah, he's been poking around.
He said Andrea's is the one he did. But it's crazy that like those are the things they don't show because they want that tie to be like anybody could win this, even though I think most fans knew once it was tied, Wendell was going to win, because you all had to be like, well, Laurel's voting for Wendell, right? Like, was there any shock or was there any question, or you all just knew like Wendell's going to get the win now?
Like, it was the most insane moment when Jeff starts to read the votes. We're all just like figuring out what's happening. It's crazy. And then in the exact same moment when Jeff says the words like, so Laurel will be casting the final vote, and like watching the three of them, like I can remember Laurel's face exactly. Like her eyes started to get huge, and like I don't think she was breathing, kind of similar to Bradley's look. Right?
Wasn't
like,
breathing.
Yeah, like a frozen, like she had just seen a ghost, as I said on RJP. Like the Ghost Island ghost is like right there, and then in Dom's hands, like falls into his head, falls into his hand, and Wendell just starts to get teary-eyed as well. Like it's in that moment, right before Laurel even goes to cast the vote, all three of them and all 10 of us know in that moment what happened. And that's something that's never happened on Survivor before, I don't think, is that we all in one moment knew what happened. And to like watch all three, Laurel realizing she's choosing who wins, Dom realizing he loses, and Wendell realizing he won, to see that happen in a moment. And like I know then it takes away the fun from a fan's point of view of like, you can't show that because then it gives away what happens. But like in some ways, like I would kill to see that footage, because it was
here's what I would say. Instead of showing Wendell's like little clip from his casting video, show like the first final tribal council tie in Survivor history. There was a camera on the three of them. Show just the reaction of all three of them when they realized that this was going to be a tie. Because I agree with you. That would be phenomenal if we could see that footage. And you know they have it. And like, God, that moment, I mean, I sat there and Ghost Island to me was like a good season. It was like it was a great season at the beginning, and then it went down, and then the finale I really, really loved. And in that moment, I had chills like I'd never had on Survivor in years. And I can't even imagine being in that room when that's going on, because you had to, as a huge fan, you had to have just been like beside yourself, like, oh my God, this is history right now. Like, this is like one of the coolest things that's ever happened on the show.
Yes, you're like, you're like, wait a second, this is happening. Like he's reading the votes. That means it's a tie. And like me and Michael are like, like looking at each other, like freaking out. And like, it just takes a minute for everyone in the group to like realize what's actually happening. It took us all a moment. Like it was amazing. And yes, it's like, come on, just like let us all like I got to see it with my own eyes, and I still would love to see the footage of how it all happens. Like it was a crazy moment. And then like they kind of shift out of that, and then the game's over, right? For us in Fiji as fans, you don't think much about what happens after the votes go in the urn and then nothing comes out. But like that's when you shift back to like quote unquote real life. And like for all of us to know what had just happened and what was going to happen and who had won, but like you still don't really talk about it. It's not like Laurel says out loud, like it's illegal essentially, like in Survivor World, for Laurel to announce who she voted for. So like it's not really said, but it's known. It was just it's a crazy, like that in and of itself would be an amazing like 45 minutes of television.
Absolutely.
What were those like after Jeff says like I'll save this one for later, whatever his last thing is, the camera stop. What are those the next 5 minutes like? Are you all still just like jaw to the floor staring at each other? Like that must have been, like Phil said, I remember watching that and I didn't even think it was a tie because I just blacked out. It was so cool.
Yeah. I think we all were just like, did that just happen? Like that all just happened. What happened is Wendell just won $1 million because Laurel just wrote that down, right? Like that's what just happened.
This is what happened.
Yeah, like you're just trying to process everything and figuring out the truth. And plus like the crew is all there and stuff. And so it's kind of a fun event to like have it all over. And it's just it was a strange but amazing moment to be a part of. I don't know how else to describe it other than I can remember in slow motion watching the three of their faces in that moment.
That should be like the Reddit side picture at all times for the rest of eternity. Like somehow somebody needs to find that photo. Somehow somebody needs to get that. But what I was going to ask is, so at Ponderosa, everybody talks, and it seems like that's what's kind of made previous seasons less exciting once you get to the final tribal is, you know, everybody knows they're going to vote for this person. Everybody knows they're going to vote for this person. Everybody, you know, at least for the most part. I know Ben versus Chrissy was still kind of close. Michelle versus Aubrey was close, but like Adam, Jeremy, people have talked at this point, you know, going into the tribal, like maybe you're going to take your shots at somebody, but whatever. Did you guys have like an inclination of who was going to win? Or was it just kind of like you guys were going in as split as it ended up being?
I try and remember, I didn't say this very often, but let's be honest, we're all fairly inebriated a lot of the time while we're at Ponderosa.
Yeah.
No.
So I'm sure that the Survivor fandom would be horrified how unseriously we take our job for like 95% of the time we're at Ponderosa.
You guys don't get 8 hours of sleep and like what are you talking about?
And aggressively study the remaining characters in the game.
Write down. We have one of those boards from like the Criminal Minds where like there's string tied to like who said what, and we're like posting everything with pen boards and no, we're like having fun and like tournaments and like swimming in the pool. And I mean, we do like on the way back from tribal, you do talk about like what happened at tribal, and sometimes you do, but we're all so freaking egocentric. We're all still trying to figure out our own game, and like you all of a sudden have someone to like talk to about like, wait, what did you think when I said this? And you're trying to digest your own game and how you lost. Like when you take all that into consideration, there's not a lot of sitting around saying like, should Dom or Wendell win? I can remember being a little heated because there was definitely Michael was like pretty vocal about how Dom was playing this amazing game. And I remember being like a little bit vocal that I felt like Wendell was like behind the scenes, like Wendell knew what Dom was doing and he was watching it. And that was my perspective, was that Wendell had a really good read on how people were taking Dom. And they were both cocky as hell. And let me tell you, sometimes I just wanted to like, I mean, you saw me like, oh, they're just like, what are we supposed to do? Do the dishes? These guys, like, they were so cocky, both of them. Like Wendell is not free from like being cocky some of the time. He was cocky sometimes. But what you asked me was like, what at Ponderosa, did we know it was going to be that close? And I don't think we even had in our minds that it could possibly tie. I don't know that you're like doing the math because we didn't sit around and say like, who are you going to vote for? Who are you going to vote for? Like part of it is a little bit like you want to keep the purity of the game, like that everyone should get to make their own decision. Yeah. What I will tell you is we all went into that tribal and we were pushing those guys to say like, which of you is better?
I liked it.
Like
I thought that final tribal was phenomenal. It's like one of the best ones because you guys really, I felt like nobody was decided because it was the two of them.
Yes. I think maybe people had an idea, but I watched like Chelsea's Jury Speaks video. I don't think she knew going in. I think I was open going in until the opening question. And then Dom said I was a liar and then it was over. And then I went to town for Wendell, which is maybe not fair, right? I think about that a lot. Like, is that fair that I could go to town for Wendell? Is it fair that Michael can go to town for Dom? I don't know.
There was one for both of them. I guess that can kind of give you the fairness, maybe.
Because in Game Changers, it was like Zeke was all in on who was Zeke in on? He was in on Sarah, right? And like that was it.
Ozzy was into Brad, yeah.
Kind of. Like you could tell it was like not as sincere. But do you like the new format that Kellen, which format do you like better then? Obviously you only played on this one, but like what do you think is the better jury format?
I mean, I loved being able to be like, and what did you do there? I mean, of course. I was like in my element, whether or not it's my best self. Like I love being like, all right, then who's actually doing this? Like tell me, I want to know.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Some people disagree, but that's okay. Like I loved Chris's question. Like Chris Noble was, what did he say? Like, I need you guys to tell me. It looks like you've been playing together. And something I've said in the past is it took us, they were like this, and they had been so intertwined in their stories for so long that we had to like get them to unweave a little bit.
Yeah. Like they weren't used to it.
They weren't used to it. You get weirdly used to the strangest things out there. And one of the things that those two were used to was they had stuck themselves together so tightly for preservation that to get them to unweave their games and to like own up to things separately, like we would have to ask the same question in multiple ways. Like, yeah, but who did make that decision? Dom, did you make that decision? Or Wendell, did you make that decision? Like, we really had to get them to like unwind their stories. And so the new format worked really well for that. If I had only had one, I think if I had only had one question, it would have gone completely differently.
Yeah.
I think for all of us, it would have.
How long did it take?
I like that it's open. Sorry. It's so hard because you don't have a watch for however many days and you don't pay attention. But I mean, it was, oh gosh, we were there. I would say it was an hour and a half at the very least.
Yeah. Especially if you have to break them apart.
Well, and I think that's why this season is interesting, is because like it's hard to say everybody was split. Dom's going to win or Wendell's going to win going into this. And like, I think that's why this season is so interesting, is because they were so intertwined. We didn't have to see any of them have to make a big move on their own, because every time some move came up, one of them did something and they each had a hand in like pulling people in. Like, I feel like with Ryan and Chrissy, like in 35, like Chrissy had more pull, I felt like, than Ryan did. And I felt like that was clear. And even though Ben was the underdog, that's why he got the win. You could see why Chrissy was going to get more votes than Ryan. In this season, like Wendell and Dom just seemed like they were like, you know, Wendell had Laurel and like when you asked your question, half of them said Dom and half of them said Wendell. Like that's all nothing. Like that's all. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, like that's how they did. Like I wonder what this will do to like 38 forward of like seeing how truly powerful a non-romantic duo can do in this game. Because it was, I mean, because they could wholeheartedly trust each other and they figured that out early on. Like it's amazing what that means when you start to dissect. What does it mean when you can actually trust someone in the game of Survivor?
Yeah. That's
and it made them be able to, because all the time, every single, I can't imagine what it would have been like to let down my guard to actually talk through real decisions and get to like run those by someone who I could trust. Because anytime I was talking game or trying to figure stuff out, I had that a little bit with Bradley at the beginning. I could trust him, but I can't imagine what that would have been like to have someone who I could actually trust to like talk out what's best for my game.
Yeah, that's just because it's so rare on the show anyway. Like you'll get people who are very close, but like a JT and Steven type relationship doesn't happen often. And that's kind of what I felt like Wendell and Dom were. We didn't get to see them as the underdogs that I feel like they truly were once the merge hit. Like I feel like they had to actually overcome, like you said at one point, like, oh, it's 6-on-2, it's 7-on-2. Like you feel like it's a gap, and that gap just kept dwindling until it was 2 and Laurel. Like
I don't know. I can't figure out, and all I can go back to is why didn't I flip? And I didn't when I needed to. And so then that's probably why everyone else didn't.
Yeah.
Which was, I think I can keep them here for now because I still have a chance down the road. And then we all just kept like missing each other in every way. I also think it was a unique situation. I tried to ask Rob Cisternino this and he wouldn't answer me, which was, is there always people who are just literally like blowing up the truth at all times? Which we had Donathan doing that. Every tribal, he would just sit down and say the truth. And that was his way of playing the game. Angela was telling the truth and going and saying the actual truth. And then Laurel was secretly doing that, going to Dom and Wendell and telling them the absolute truth. I wonder if that's like, I don't remember watching other seasons, but because we as viewers don't know what's the truth and what's not the truth. So I really would love to get a sense of like, how much did that change our game as well, of how much Jonathan, Laurel, and Angela were completely spilling the beans all the time?
Yeah.
Is that normal?
I mean,
I don't think so. I feel like that's pretty rare, especially having 3 people do that.
yeah. I feel like there's certain people, like we did see on 35, Cole was literally probably all 3 of them combined into one person exponentially. Like, he was just ridiculous with his. That would be like you telling Bradley something and Bradley being like, well, the whole tribe must know immediately. Walk out there, tell everyone. Like
As a peace signal, of course.
I think there's a few people, but it's very rare that they all make it so deep. I mean, you had 3 of those people in the finale. Like, that's a lot of people to make it that far into the game. So I think that, like Cole, what did he make it? 12th, 11th? Like, he didn't make it very far. So that could definitely hurt the game, because you start to be like, wait, how are they getting this information? Who's the spy? And then you find out there's 3 of them. It's not just one.
Well, and it wasn't even spies. They were doing it at tribal in front of everyone. So that's where I also felt like you couldn't like create plans, because the people who I needed were telling everyone everything all the time. So I couldn't find people to like have secrets with.
Yeah.
But is that, maybe that's normal?
I feel, I mean, that probably might be Survivor. We weren't out there.
What do we know?
I'll get out there once, Kellen, and I'll come back, and that'll be like the first thing I tell you. That's going to be it. I'm gonna be like, you know what, Kellen? It was normal to feel that way.
I am just dropping truth bombs.
Yeah.
People tell secrets on Survivor. Oh gosh, there's a concept.
Who would have thought? Well, we're up to we're almost at 2.5 hours. And we cruised. So you might actually, I think you might beat Bradley's time here. I have one more question, and then if there's anything you really want to say, or if Alexa has any questions, but my one question is, the winner from the last 2 seasons has won the Fire Making Challenge of Final Four. Mm-hmm. You've been a fan for a really long time. Did that impact you at all in voting for Wendell, or had you already known? And do you think that the Final Four thing is the right way to do it, or do you have no comment? Or
no comment.
No comment.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
I was a joke.
I was going to take that.
That was totally a joke, you guys. When do I ever have no comment?
That was a 2-word answer. That was
let's pour the bottle of wine in and let's hear it.
Yeah.
Dear God, after 2.5 hours of this lady, please shut up. No, I mean, we knew about it. So therefore you can play the whole thing. I think that's why Dom and Wendell were able to stay together, because I think the whole time they were saying we are going to be 2 strong competitors, and then we'll duke it out with the fire in the end, and may the best man win. I can't wait for the next season where it's may the best person win. But it's the Final Four thing, I think it's fine to do that, but people are going to have to start getting really creative. You obviously can't win that Final Four immunity challenge anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No, it's true, because then you just put yourself in a position. I honestly thought Dom was going to take Wendell with him to say to the jury, hey guys, I took Wendell here.
If Dom would have taken Wendell, I think I would have voted for Dom.
See, wow. That's what I thought. That's when I said it. I texted Alexa when Dom won. I said he has to take Wendell here, because otherwise he's just giving Wendell another chance to prove himself. If he takes Wendell, he says, I brought him here with me. This was my big move, was actually saying, I'll sit next to him, but I want all of you to know I brought him. And I think that has to be a strategy going forward.
I don't know if that always works, but with those 2, it works, because all we were looking for is which of you got the other person here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which of you 2, you're so closely, which of you is in charge? If Dom had brought Wendell with him, then it's obvious Dom was in charge.
Exactly. Even if only in that moment, that's all you needed it to be obvious for.
Yes.
What if Dom gave up his immunity to face Wendell in the Fire Making Challenge? What would your thought process have been on that?
I think I would have been like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. What is he doing?
I was watching that and I was like, I don't know how to feel about this, but I feel very strongly.
Well, I mean, I mean, even so, if he had done that, he goes to beat Wendell. He's up against Laurel and Angela. I think what a cocky son of a bitch, but I'm still giving him the money.
Yeah.
Because
that's talking about earning it.
Yeah, talk about that's like literally like, you know what, man? I think you're gonna beat me if you get here, so I have to beat you now. I mean, that is a big move. And I agree with what you said. Like, it depends on who you're with. You can't always take the biggest threat. Like, Adam couldn't have taken David had like that been the situation. I think he loses in that situation. But when it's somebody who's so close and you know that the only person who can beat you is that person, I think Dom would have been in the right to either take Wendell or say, you know what, man, I'm not going to beat you anyway, so let's do it right here, right now to decide who's going to win, and this final tribal is going to be boring as hell, but let's do it.
Yeah, I don't think he should have ever taken the fire risk, but he should have taken him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think that if Dom would have taken Wendell looks like they get to sell that story. He gets to sell the story of I've taken him this whole way.
Yeah.
So I do think in that situation, I would have voted for Dom. And I think Chelsea would have too.
Yeah. So then that's all you would have needed.
There it is. So I promise this will be my last one. So when did Jeff tell you guys this and what was your reaction? Because you guys did not see that happen in 35. Yeah, you didn't.
Right. No, we didn't. So we didn't know that happened. So we found out before the game started.
Okay.
He just told you when you were coming in.
He told us in pregame. Yeah, Jeff told us all at one time.
What was your thought process like immediately?
Maybe if I would have believed I could have won the game from the beginning, I would have handled everything differently. At that point, I was like, Final Four, I'll worry about that. Like, I've got so much work to do. Like, and that's something too, I would say for like all of the fans who I hope get to play Survivor someday is like, I've asked Wendell, did you believe from the beginning that you were going to win? And he said, yes. He said, I knew I could do it. And I wonder how differently I would have played if I would have had the mentality of, I can win this.
Yeah.
Like, I remember being like, what if I could win this? But I remember then listing off a million reasons why I'm going to get voted out first. And like, I have to do this and I have to compensate for this. And all the time, like what could I have done if I would have believed from the beginning, like Wendell did, like Dom did, I can win this game. Yeah. And I challenge people, and especially women that aren't necessarily as good at that, to go into it. Like, if you're going into next season and you apply, like, let yourself believe that they wouldn't put you out there if you couldn't win, and like, believe that you can do it and see what you can do. Because I wonder how differently I would have played if I would have focused on my strengths that could have gotten me to the end versus me trying to compensate for all the worries that I wasn't going to make it to the end. And so, like, when Jeff asked Final Four is going to be fire, I picture in Wendell and Dom's head, they were like, oh, well, what strategy am I going to use there? And my head was like, Final Four, hell, I hope I make it to like 4 days. And so I don't know. It's just a mentality thing to think about. Maybe nobody cares.
But. No, that's really interesting. I think it's interesting because everybody knows when you walk out on the island, you're probably going to lose. It's just a matter of sitting there and saying, well, why can't I be the one? Why, it is that mentality of like, well, I'm going to be the one on this season. That's going to be me. And I think like a lot of the winners did have that mentality from the beginning. Like, I know like Adam definitely had that. You talk to Adam and you know it. Like, I think
Sarah Lucina probably.
Sarah Lucina had it. I don't know if Ben so much had it. I think Ben might have also been the one who like kind of found his way a little bit. But I do think for the majority, if you go all the way back, Jeremy definitely, when he went out for Cambodia, was like, oh, this is in the bag. Goodbye, everybody. Mike Holloway definitely had it. It's an interesting like way to look at it, because at the end of the day, there's 19. Even Dom lost, but when Dom walked on the island, all of his pregame press was, I'm going to win the game. By the way, I've already I'm ready. You have to have that I wrote the $1 million check mentality, or in the words of the lovely Bradley, I'm playing A+ Survivor. Like, this is it. I feel like you have to have that mentality. Otherwise, eventually, like, your insecurities or something catches up to you because you are so like, bare boned out there.
Yeah.
Yes. it's interesting to think about, and I will probably always look for that, like at the beginning, like who believed they could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like, I mean, that probably puts Bradley as like third most likely person to win our season, because I think he believed more than anyone that he could win. So, and I also think Laurel thought that probably at the beginning of the game too.
Mm-hmm.
I think Laurel thought she could win going in.
Well, and I think that's also why, like, the second time around, the best player normally does win when, like, a second chance a season. You know, like All-Stars, I know Boston Rob loses, but when Jeremy wins or when Sarah wins, these were like the best players that didn't win their first time. And I think the reason that they're so able to win and like do it so dominantly or be so good is because they said, man, if I would have done that one thing differently, I could have done this. I could have actually, and you have that confidence boost now where you're like, I was so close. I can really pull this out. And then you go out there and you just do exactly what you should have just thought you could do like the first time. So I think that is like that's a really good mentality to have for everybody going out there.
And you look at the seasons where there are newbies, like fans' favorites or the captain seasons and all that stuff. What if that's the difference?
Yeah.
Is they just believe they can do it.
Exactly. No, that's
really good advice there.
There we go.
Yeah, everyone, please. This 7th placer, she knows all. I definitely play her game. It's a great idea.
Hey, you know what? 7th placers. Oh no, Rupert was 8th. I was gonna say like 7th placers are big names, but the first one that came to the head was Rupert, and then it wasn't him. But no, I mean, 7th place out of 20 though. It's no longer this 16 person stuff, you know. So you got to beat 4 extra people.
I did.
And you have the bragging rights over Bradley, so
I did all right. And I made it to the loved ones visit. So
there you go.
there it is.
Do you have any other sage advice you want to end on here? Or do you want to take this 2 hour 45-minute podcast and put it to bed? Bradley says stop. He said thanks, Bay. Now stop talking so I can go to bed.
Yeah, I know you East Coasters. Like, I'm worried about Alexa getting home safely. Please do not take public transportation this time of night.
I think I'm gonna take This podcast has been brought to you by Lyft.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Well, I can't believe Bradley hung in there that whole time. Usually on FaceTime, like I can get him to pay attention to me for like 2 hours on FaceTime, but that's usually the cutoff. So,
oh wow,
that's a props to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm saying thank you. Alexa's saying, "Oh, stop." I'm like,
I'm blushing.
Thanks, Kellen.
Well, I don't even know if I talk strategy at all for the Survivor Specialist, so you may want to put a big old warning sign on this one.
It's more fun this way because we've watched the strategy for like how long the season goes, 2.5, 3 months. So it's refreshing to actually like have a real conversation with you guys and actually know what the relationships are like. So I liked it.
Good.
But when I post this on Reddit, I will make sure to put a huge warning situation on it.
Definitely put my name. So that will like 49,751 people of the 50 grand will be like out. Say this is Kellen, don't watch.
We didn't do it for the views, Kellen. We did it for the stories.
Yeah, well, you heard a few. I think that, oh my God, I know the best story. I'm sorry. This is worth it.
Okay.
Oh, man, let's do it.
Bae, if you're still there, it's the well story. So while we're at Malolo version 1, I'm with Bradley and Sebastian, Chelsea and Des. A few nights in, maybe like the second night we're there, I like take Bradley and Sebastian down to the well and I'm like, you guys, look, I don't want these people to know how closely the 3 of us are working together. So we can't sleep beside each other. We can't sleep beside each other anymore. We've been edge of the bed. Like, we can't do this anymore. We cannot give this away that we're a threesome here. So Sebastian, please go hang out with Jenna. So maybe I set them up. And I was like, Sebastian, please go hang out with Jenna. Like, start working her. Bradley, please go like hang out with Johnson and start working her. Like, we need to start to get these Malolo girls into trusting us. Like, I'm building the girls on like the girl friendship, and like you guys need to start working them too. And like the 3 of us cannot be seen together. So this is like during the day. Then we're like all around the fire that night, and I'm like sitting on the opposite side of the fire, like all by myself. And like I look across the fire and there's like flames, like romantic flames, and like I see in slow motion like Sebastian like flipping his hair with Jenna and being like ha ha ha. And then there's Bradley and Johnson, and she's so gorgeous, like her boobs are out, and they're like ha ha ha. And I'm like sitting on the other side of the fire, and I'm like, what have I done? Like, those are my boys. And so the next morning, I didn't sleep beside them at night. I'm like freezing my ass off all night long because I'm not in between Bradley and Sebastian anymore, because I told them to go work with those girls. And so the next morning, I'm like, we're going to the well. And so I like look at Bradley and Sebastian. I like start crying, and I'm like, I was just kidding. Like, please. Don't ignore me. We should keep sleeping beside each other. That was totally a mistake. Don't pay more attention to those girls than you pay to me. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So jealous Kellen came out on like day. Like,
I can just imagine this like romantic flames and the
long flowing hair, and then Bradley's hair, but the long flowing hair.
Yeah, like
there was so much
long flowing hair is Sebastian. Oh my God.
So much hair and so much laughter and so much smiling. And I was so cold, and I was like, what have I done? And like, I should have been like, ha ha ha, I'm the Survivor queen. They're doing exactly as I tell them. Instead, I was like, I'm all alone. What have I done?
You didn't say to yourself,
play
like,
with me.
Yeah, you didn't say to yourself like, okay, now Kellen, go cuddle up next to Michael. Like, you didn't think like,
yeah,
hey.
Where's the Michael snuggle?
I did start snuggling with Michael after the second stop. I was like, forget this. I'm sleeping next to that worm kid. But no, I didn't like go replace my boys with anything. But Bradley, you have to ask Bradley, but he and Sebastian, I guess I like walked away and they looked at each other. I can only imagine what their faces, and they were like, she is fucking crazy. Like, what just happened?
He just put in the chat, Seb and I looked at each other in disbelief as she walked away back to camp ahead of us.
Oh my God.
So those are the kinds of things, the Survivor soap opera things that just don't have time for air. But
especially on your season, everybody's dating everybody. So it's like,
yeah, it was so crazy. It's how close I let myself feel to those people. So anyway, I hope it was worth. That was like
fantastic.
I'm very glad you told it.
That was great. Coming back out to finish out that glass of wine there and tell that final story. Kellen, thank you so much for coming on. We'll definitely have to have you again in the future when we do a predictions, power rankings, that type of fun stuff we were doing in the off season. And Kellen for second chances, right? I'm assuming you'd play again, right?
I mean, I would never say no, like as much as you think you'd want to say no or whatever. But I'm not holding my breath. You saw that edit?
We did. It made no sense.
Freaking hate me in CBS. So I'm not holding my breath at all. I had an amazing experience. I got to do live out a lot of Survivor fans' dreams, and I do regret a lot of game moves, but I don't regret any part of the experience. So I don't need a second chance, but if I was given one, I would take it and I would play my heart out. So
perfect.
Heard it here first.
Love it. Alexa, you want to close us on that?
I will wrap it up. So I always have to be sketchy after these because I never know when our next one's planned. At some point in the near future, we're going to try to have more of these interviews. Phil's about to go on a cross-country road trip with a lot of sketchy Wi-Fi, so we're going to try to find a way to. Sorry for just like blowing up your personal life like that.
It's fun to like try to plan these though, like for the future. And I'm like, oh god, I might be in like North Dakota. Like, and I'm like,
Phil, you need to just turn your phone into a Wi-Fi hotspot.
Yeah.
So hopefully soon we're gonna try to talk to people who are on the season. But in the meantime, like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter, subscribe at Survivor Specialists on YouTube. I think in between Bradley's tell-all and this moment, we gained about 7 or 8 subscribers. So maybe Kellen can get even more than that, just for more to hang over Bradley's head. So make sure to hit subscribe, hit like, hit follow, and we'll be back at an undisclosed time.